When the five elements combined, Meng Hao's cultivation base did not change, but his battle prowess doubled again. He began with power equivalent to 1 peak late nascent soul. Now he had power equivalent to 16. Such terrifying battle prowess far exceeded the late nascent soul stage. Even the great circle of the nascent soul stage would crumble before Meng Hao's power of 16 peak late nascent souls. That was the fearsomeness of the realm of perfection. However, such terrifying power came at the price of longevity. Maintaining it meant his longevity was no longer 100 years, but rather 6. After all, he was not truly in possession of a perfect nascent soul, having acquired it by alternative methods. Not even a true perfect nascent soul could come close to this fearsome power. On this new path of the nascent soul that Meng Hao had forged, he possessed perfect battle prowess exceeding even the perfect nascent soul. Operating on speculation rather than research, he hadn't been certain of the outcome. But having sensed the battle prowess within him, he realized his path was astonishing. Battle power erupted as his aura turned swift and fierce against the five-petaled resurrection lily. His body was the battlefield where the two forces collided. As soon as they collided, the resurrection lily let out a miserable howl. Fifth petal or not, under Meng Hao's battle prowess it could not withstand even a single blow. Intangible explosions rippled out as the resurrection lily collapsed under Meng Hao's attack. It retreated completely from its former position of superiority. Now all it could do was hide in Meng Hao's extremities, surrender any hope of rising, and pray he would not attack further. Meng Hao took a deep breath as he looked up at the sixth nascent soul hovering near his head, the wind nascent soul. His eyes gleamed with determination. Since I decided to be powerful, I might as well acquire the pinnacle of power. Without hesitation, he lifted his right hand and pointed at the wind nascent soul. It flickered and moved with incredible speed, more than minor teleportation. It exceeded that, and immediately appeared inside Meng Hao, fusing with the other nascent souls. BOMMM. The great circle of 6 elements, 6-colored nascent soul. Incredible battle prowess rocketed up, doubling again. A fearsome aura equivalent to 32 peak late nascent souls emanated outward, causing the violet sea to tremble. This was 6-colored paragon. Meng Hao could sweep across all nascent soul cultivators. He was only a short way away from the spirit severing stage, and yet in all the lands of South Heaven, he was definitely the #1 person under the spirit severing stage. If his cultivation base broke through to the great circle of late nascent soul with 32 times normal battle prowess, facing spirit-severing cultivators would not leave him helpless. He could defend himself. This might seem insignificant, but spirit-severing was a major stage of demarcation. Qi condensation, foundation establishment, core formation, nascent soul, these were the stages of mortals. By using incredible power, momentum built up for breaking through to a new type of life, spirit-severing. Spirit-severing, Tao-seeking, and immortal ascension, the stages of immortals. The difference between mortals and immortals was such that a mortal who could fight an immortal would cause an incredible commotion throughout South Heaven if word spread. Normally, this would only be possible with precious treasures. Relying on one's body alone made it impossible. As of this moment, it was possible for Meng Hao. When he reached the 6-colored great circle, the resurrection lily within him began to tremble. Meng Hao immediately battered it with all his cultivation base's battle prowess. Indescribable, shocking booming filled him like towers of thunder. The resurrection lily let out an unprecedented scream. All its defenses crumbled as Meng Hao's battle prowess and divine sense bore down into its very core. It screamed and trembled, terrified. It had its own consciousness, and it couldn't recall ever feeling this hopeless. Originally, it should have been above all other living things, with Meng Hao as nothing but its host. Now it was being possessed. It was becoming part of Meng Hao. There was nothing it could do. Meng Hao's battle prowess of 32 peak late nascent souls meant the resurrection lily could only watch in shock as divine sense was driven into its core. Its life or death was completely in Meng Hao's hands. Meng Hao did not exterminate it. Instead, he branded its consciousness with his seal. This seal is not indelible. 100 years from now, if I can't make a 6th petal appear, I'll exterminate you. If a 6th petal does appear, the seal will dissipate and you'll have another chance to possess me. Then you will be qualified to fight me again. Meng Hao's cold words echoed within the seal on the resurrection lily's consciousness. It trembled, awed by Meng Hao yet filled with fierceness and resistance. Suppressing its wild heart, it slowly calmed. What Meng Hao wanted was precisely that, the resurrection lily's wild heart. Having suppressed the resurrection lily, Meng Hao sat down cross-legged to study his expanding cultivation base. He could clearly sense his longevity would last only 3 more years, perhaps slightly more. Too bad I don't have a 7th nascent soul. With it, I'd have only 1 year of longevity, but could I then battle the spirit severing stage? A bright gleam appeared in his eyes. He slapped his bag of holding to produce a wooden box. Looking at it made him think of his master, Pill Demon, who had given it to him. It contained a medicinal pill that could suppress the resurrection lily, help achieve cultivation-based breakthroughs, and add longevity. Throughout all the years, Meng Hao had never consumed one. Now he unhesitatingly took a pill out, made copies, and swallowed one. He sat cross-legged meditating as it dissolved. His cultivation base grew stable and his life force vigorous. The power of growth fused into his 6-colored nascent soul, instantly replenishing his longevity. After fully absorbing the first pill, he made more and consumed them. Several days later, he opened his eyes from meditation, glowing with shocking brightness. His life force was restored to roughly half a 60-year cycle. His bag of holding was now devoid of spirit stones, and he had consumed many pills. He had managed to add almost 1,000 years to his longevity. Unfortunately, the pill's effectiveness weakened continuously until they stopped working. Such was how longevity-increasing pills worked. After all, life could not go past 1,000 years. That rule could never change, and mortal power could never fight it. Though it seems like only 30 years, keeping the 6 nascent souls dispersed normally and combining them only when necessary will resolve the longevity problem. Now that Meng Hao didn't have to worry, he gave a long sigh. If only he had a 7th nascent soul, that would be better. Meng Hao stood up, popping sounds coming from within his body. He was now 3 heads taller. His shoulders widened while his body grew more slender. His muscles hadn't grown, but he was clearly stronger and tougher. All his blood and flesh was filled with shocking power. Blue veins bulged out, and every heartbeat sent hot blood pumping throughout his body. His physical body had experienced an unprecedented increase in toughness. At the moment, he looked strange and bizarre, radiating an indescribably imposing bearing. He looked like something beyond the mortal world, something unprecedentedly mighty. Suddenly, cracking sounds came from his right hand. Meng Hao watched as the diaphanous Fang Clan glove exploded into pieces. His own fist's power now exceeded the glove's. He quickly gathered up the pieces and put them in his bag of holding. This will now count as one divine ability, 6 Anima's soul transformations. Under normal circumstances, I will only reveal the first Anima's power. His eyes glittered, and the 6-colored nascent soul within him trembled. Ghost images appeared. Within a few breaths they broke apart, transforming once again into 6 different nascent souls. They sat cross-legged in Meng Hao's Danshan region, meditating. Meng Hao's aura dropped. His cultivation base was again at the peak of late nascent soul stage. His body changed, no longer tall and mighty. He returned to his previous height, his flesh and blood power normal again. His entire person now emanated the scholarly aura he usually had. After studying his cultivation base to ensure his method was correct and the longevity problem solved, he looked up at the violet sea. The entire sea was his eyes. He could see the growing tempest above with lightning and tribulation clouds surging. His body flickered. Explosions sounded in all directions as the violet sea around him became a huge vortex. His body transformed into a beam of light shooting up from the seafloor's depths toward the surface. As he moved up, the vortex grew larger, causing massive waves. It was as if the entire violet sea were letting out a cry welcoming Meng Hao. This was the first time in more than 100 years that he finally emerged in the outside world. Boom! The violet sea roared as massive waves rolled out in all directions. Meng Hao stood on the water's surface, looking up at the tribulation clouds. Boundless lightning crackled and boomed. It was as if, upon finding Meng Hao, the heavenly tribulation roared at him. Meng Hao's expression remained calm as he said, "Heavenly tribulation, I haven't seen you for ages." This chapter was sponsored by Torsten Beckman, Sophocles Skortsonitis, and Laz Vandrup. Up to this point my life consisted of 2 parts, Meng Hao murmured. The first was beneath Mount Daqing, along the path of the imperial examinations. When I stood on top of Mount Daqing, wrote down my dream and stuffed it into that gourd bottle, then tossed it into the river below, I had no idea that moment represented the beginning of the second part. The second part was cultivation. Meng Hao stood on the violet sea's surface, wearing a spotless green robe. He did not sink into the seawater. Instead, he looked up at the boundless red lightning dancing above like serpents, interlocked in tribulation clouds. This past 100 years of cultivation allowed me to experience death and escape. I've experienced things the old me never could, walked paths I never could walk to the end of. As for heavenly tribulation, I've faced it more than once. This time, I won't be nervous as I was with the perfect foundation tribulation, nor take it as seriously as the perfect gold core tribulation. I've been waiting for today's heavenly tribulation for a long time. A slight smile broke out on his face. As he murmured, a massive rumbling roared from the tribulation clouds. A red lightning bolt shot down toward Meng Hao. As it neared, more lightning bolts fused into it. By the time it was 30 meters from Meng Hao's head, it was as wide as a person's arm, roaring toward him with the awe-inspiring power to destroy. Meng Hao looked up at the incoming lightning, then lifted his right arm and waved it toward the sky. Life force collided with death will, transforming into a power of extermination that shot toward the bolt. A shocking boom filled heaven and sea. The arm's-width lightning instantly collapsed into countless arcs of electricity scattering above Meng Hao. Before, this tribulation would have destroyed me in both body and soul. Now it doesn't even qualify to make me enter my second anima. Meng Hao's expression remained the same as he stood motionless, then looked back at the heavenly tribulation. Meng Hao's behavior infuriated the heavenly tribulation. Lightning and thunder crashed in the sky. 4 red bolts formed and descended. An ear-splitting roar filled the air as the 30-meter area around Meng Hao became a lake of lightning. Each bolt contained enough power to eradicate late-nascent soul stage cultivators. As they fell, Meng Hao simply stood there and waved his sleeve, allowing them to strike. Red lightning danced around Meng Hao, spreading across the violet sea for several hundred meters. He stood in the middle, his entire body glowing with electrical light. The light quickly faded. In a few breaths it was completely gone. Meng Hao's expression remained unchanged. He was in the first anima of the 6 anima's soul transformations, with the full power of a peak late-nascent soul. This was his normal state. Though the lightning was incredibly powerful, it could not hurt him in the first anima. Meng Hao gently shook his arms and legs, feeling the lightning fused into his body. He had experienced this before, so he wasn't surprised. He looked up, eyes shining with bright light. An enormous enraged roar filled the sky. 8 lightning bolts merged together above. The tribulation cloud seethed and pulled back. Thunder boomed as 8 bright red bolts fell, like blood, with intense destructive power, bearing down enormous pressure on Meng Hao. Instead of falling back, he laughed, a demonic glow radiating from his eyes. Now it's interesting, second anima. 2 of the 6 nascent souls within Meng Hao overlapped and fused. Popping sounds came from within as he swelled out. He grew half a head taller, looking bigger. His aura exploded, doubling. Now he possessed the battle prowess of 2 peak late-nascent souls. Waves kicked up in the violet sea, sweeping in all directions. A whirlwind erupted from Meng Hao entering his second anima. Laughing, he shot up into the air to attack the 8 bolts, taking the initiative rather than passively reacting. A huge boom echoed as the 8 bolts slammed into him. An explosion burst out for hundreds of meters in every direction. Meng Hao met the full force head-on, rocketing forward completely unharmed. They didn't even make him bleed. The heavenly tribulation seemed intelligent and was furious. Thunder filled the air. 18 red lightning bolts appeared, looking like 18 ferocious red dragons crashing toward Meng Hao. Third anima, his eyes surged with an intense desire to fight. His body grew again. He was more than a full head taller, his body more cut and rough. Only a scrap of scholarly aura remained. Now his aura was much more demonic. He flew up, performing an incantation gesture as the 18 bolts fell. A multicolored light spread out, distorting the air as it slammed into them. A huge boom shook everything. Meng Hao laughed as the area became a maelstrom of lightning. It couldn't obstruct his path. He continued shooting upward, 4th anima. Roaring filled his body as it expanded again. He was now even more brutally powerful, 2 heads taller, shoulders wide, frame slender. The scholar's aura was gone, the demonic air growing intense. He gave off the feeling of a demonic monster. Even smiling, Meng Hao now looked evil. 4 nascent souls overlapped and combined, giving Meng Hao the power of 8 peak late nascent souls. He continued shooting toward the tribulation clouds. As Meng Hao increased his speed, the clouds roiled. More than 20 bolts shot down, shaking everything, even the sea below. They continuously slammed into him but were incapable of affecting him. His right hand grasped and an azure immortal's sword appeared. His left slapped his bag of holding and an alcohol flagon appeared. He took a drink, then waved the sword, causing an azure beam to flicker out. Bolts exploded as they hit Meng Hao, causing sparks to fly about. More than a few fused into his body. Gradually, a will of lightning built up inside him. The tribulation lightning being formed was no longer just red. 7 colors formed into 7-colored tribulation lightning, one single bolt capable of ripping the air, a fierce 7-colored dragon pouncing toward Meng Hao. Fifth anima. Shocking popping sounds rang out. He was now 2.5 heads taller. His body was far more powerful, his battle prowess exploding up. He now possessed power equivalent to 16 peak late nascent souls. The sky and land dimmed, the clouds seethed. Meng Hao's body brimmed with incredible power. His hair whipped about, his eyes shone strangely. As the 7-colored lightning neared, the azure immortal's sword shot forward into it. The devil's spear appeared in his hand like a fierce dragon. Majestic black mist burst out with countless ferocious faces. It followed the sword toward the 7-colored lightning. When the forces slammed together, a huge boom sounded. The lightning exploded. The sword spun. The spear trembled and exploded with a bang, transforming into mist that surged out, then seethed and reformed. The shattered lightning became a 7-colored rain. It fell in all directions, many fusing into Meng Hao's body. The lightning building inside him grew thicker. A tremor ran through him, blood oozing from his mouth. He hovered in midair looking up. The tribulation clouds shrunk on themselves. 7-colored light spread as the clouds transformed into 7-colored clouds. From within emerged a gigantic finger formed from 7-colored lightning. The enormous finger was 3,000 meters long, completely composed of flickering 7-colored lightning. Anyone who saw it would be astonished. It emitted a destructive pressure bearing down on Meng Hao as if to squash him like an insect. As the finger neared, Meng Hao's eyes narrowed. 6th anima. All 6 nascent souls overlapped and combined. 6 colors combined. Boom! He instantly grew taller, his body more valiant. Shoulders wide, frame slender. There was now no scholar's aura. The only thing he possessed was breathtaking demonic evil. Beneath him, the violet sea roared. The vortex spun, sending crashing waves out. In his 6th anima, Meng Hao possessed more than 30 times the power of a peak late nascent soul. He fully deserved to be the most powerful person under spirit severing in South Heaven. Meng Hao kicked down violently into the air. A bang rang out as ripples appeared, and he shot straight toward the 7-colored finger. His right hand clenched into a fist. As the finger neared, a fierce glow appeared in his eyes. Then he punched. Meng Hao compared poorly to the enormous finger from a distance. He looked like a bug. But who cared about that? When Meng Hao's fist struck the finger, an enormous boom shook heaven and the violet sea. Giant waves rolled across the water. Only Meng Hao saw it. If anyone else did, it would be the most shocking thing they'd ever see. As the bang rang out, blood sprayed from Meng Hao's mouth. Though sent shooting backward, his laughter continued echoing. He looked up at the 7-colored finger as it collapsed into countless pieces. A 7-colored lake of lightning formed, composed of endless arcs. Many bored into Meng Hao's body. The tribulation lightning was completely destroyed. The tribulation clouds up above were thinning, seeming on the verge of dissipating. This heavenly tribulation seemed quite simple for Meng Hao. In truth, it was. It was much more intense than previous tribulations. However, Meng Hao's perception was influenced by the fact that more than 100 years of secluded meditation ended with him rising to virtually the peak of the mortal realm in South Heaven. Meng Hao wiped blood from his mouth. In the 6th anima, he was at his strongest. He hovered a moment in midair, then kicked down again. A bang sounded as he flew up toward the dissipating clouds. Meng Hao knew that when tribulation clouds spread like this, their destructive power grew stronger. They seemed to dissipate, but actually, if careless, he would perish. As Meng Hao charged in attack, a roaring sounded from the thin clouds. The clouds rapidly contracted, forming a shocking, enormous fist. The fist was formed completely of tribulation clouds, within which swirled innumerable lightning bolts in 7 colors. This was no longer just lightning. It was the direct power of tribulation clouds. All the tribulation clouds had formed together, here to exterminate everything. Meng Hao rocketed through the air, looking at the seething clouds that had formed into an enormous fist. He could clearly sense the complete will of destruction within. His eyes glowed brightly as his left hand gestured down toward the sea. Violet Sea. The Violet Sea was him, and he was the Violet Sea. As the words left his mouth, the entirety of the Western Desert Apocalypse's Violet Sea suddenly moved. A huge vortex spun, causing massive waves to surge. In the center, directly beneath Meng Hao, a gigantic column of water rose up. Thousands of meters wide, it surrounded Meng Hao at its center and shot into the air. As the column shot up, the rest of the sea sank down. At the same time, Meng Hao's right index finger pointed down. Specters. The specters of all the neo-demons and cultivators who had died in the apocalypse existed parasitically within the sea. They responded to Meng Hao's summons, instantly surging in from all directions. They shot into the column, filling it, forming the column's soul. Yet that soul was fragmented. The true soul was Meng Hao. Boom! The column of seawater shot out past Meng Hao, magically transforming into a gigantic arm. Further up, the arm ended in a fist. A violet fist and violet arm, the arm of the Violet Sea. Had there been eyewitnesses, they would have felt unprecedented shock, the image forever engraved in their minds. What they would see was tribulation clouds transformed into a fist, representing heaven's will, and another fist stretched from within the sea, representing the apocalypse's heart. One enormous fist descended from above, the other rose from the sea. There in midair they slammed together. The boom rang out in all directions, shaking heaven and earth, causing the Violet Sea to vibrate. This scene was indescribably shocking, impossible to describe. Transcending tribulation, this way was unprecedented. Before Meng Hao, no one had done this, and after this day, likely no one else would. The Violet Seas will have transformed into an arm exterminating heavenly tribulation, containing the pinnacle of extermination's power, like an enormous greater demons. If Meng Hao had not engaged in demonic transmigration, he could never have done this. Suddenly, the tribulation clouds emitted shocking explosive thunder. The lightning inside exploded out, transforming into a roar heard clearly in the 10 outpost cities on the surface. Countless lightning bolts slammed into the power of extermination, transforming into innumerable sparks. The electricity merged into the Violet Sea, causing specters to vanish. Some electricity also merged into Meng Hao's body, spreading to fill it. Finally, after the last lightning dissipated, no fist was visible. The lightning vanished. Unable to destroy Meng Hao, the heavenly tribulation seemed to retreat. The Violet Sea arm lost its spirit and will, collapsing back into the sea. A huge boom sounded as the water spread back out, rising up once again. Meng Hao hovered in midair, lightning sparking constantly through his body. He coughed up blood and shot back down toward the sea. Just as he was about to splash into the waters, he stopped on its surface. Lightning danced on his body. His face pale, he looked up at the sky. The disappearing tribulation clouds suddenly stopped. The heavenly tribulation had a bit of power left and wanted to make one final lightning strike. Meng Hao's eyes narrowed and his cultivation base began to rotate. Sharp pain stabbed out and he coughed up more blood. When he coughed it up, his mind suddenly trembled. Within the blood were vast quantities of electric sparks. He must look almost like a human-shaped lightning bolt. Thunder, lightning. Meng Hao's mind shook, ignoring the clouds overhead. His mind filled with primordial chaos as an incredible idea took form. Lightning is a manifestation of power that could form a totem tattoo. In that case, it could also make a nascent soul. My 7th nascent soul, lightning nascent soul. If I form a 7th nascent soul, in the 7th anima, I could wield battle prowess equivalent to 64 peak late nascent souls. No, that's not right. It would be the great circle of the nascent soul stage. Meng Hao was panting. Without hesitation, he produced all his remaining one-color soul procurement pills. Leaving only one as backup, he placed the rest in his mouth. The instant the pills entered his mouth, he felt that special divine sense sweep through his body. Pain appeared everywhere. Strands of lightning were forced out of him. This lightning contained power from the current tribulation and remnants from the perfect gold core and perfect foundation tribulations. All lightning was forced out and sucked into his dantian. In an eye blink, all sparks began merging. Meng Hao immediately sat cross-legged on the sea. He ignored the clouds above and focused completely on meditation. More lightning sparks coalesced in his dantian. All lightning in the entire area stopped moving and was sucked toward Meng Hao. Lightning in both air and sea writhed and glowed as it bore into his body and came to his dantian. Using his body as the pill furnace, His will as the formula and his life as the flame, he began to concoct. The process was quick. In an eye blink, a roaring filled Meng Hao's mind as the lightning coalesced into a gigantic ball. The ball writhed and shattered. A small, 7-inch tall person appeared. The person looked exactly like Meng Hao. This was his seventh nascent soul, the lightning nascent soul. As soon as the tiny person appeared, Meng Hao's cultivation base exploded upward. He had broken through into the great circle of the nascent soul stage. His hair whipped about as he rose to the pinnacle of nascent soul power. At the same time, the thin clouds up above were thoroughly provoked. No one had dared to break through in the middle of tribulation, who had dared absorb the tribulation's power. The clouds dispersed and transformed into a human-shaped lightning bolt. The bolt was incomplete, a bit blurry, features unclear, yet it emanated terrifying pressure. It shot toward Meng Hao. Seventh Anima. Meng Hao's eyes shone with destructive light as the lightning nascent soul overlapped and combined with the others, pushing him into the seventh anima. Boom! Meng Hao's body changed again. He was taller, more valiant. He was not demonically evil, but rather more like an immortal devil. His long hair whipped about, his body radiating a fearsome aura of destruction. In the seventh anima, he exploded with the power of 64 great circle nascent souls. Meng Hao was not just the number one figure under spirit severing. If he ran into a spirit severing cultivator, he might lose eventually, but he could still fight. This chapter was sponsored by Jonathan Tanomiharja, Mikkel Dranicki, Louis Val, Ganesh MVJ, Austin Gramillion, David Kism, and Lionel Castenda. Chapter 528, I Saw the Nightmare. In the seventh anima, Meng Hao's power was completely unprecedented. His body was mighty, fearsome, shocking. With wide shoulders and slender frame, he was almost 3 meters tall, looking like an immortal devil. A fearsome aura erupted from him, transforming into an invisible whirlpool that shook everything. The violet sea churned and the sky dimmed. The tribulation clouds disappeared, having given birth to the human-shaped lightning bolt shooting toward Meng Hao. He looked up, hair whipping about. His appearance contained a force no living thing could resist. He suddenly stamped his foot. Boom! The entire violet sea jumped as a huge crater appeared beneath Meng Hao, nearly 3,000 meters wide. Seawater surged out in all directions as Meng Hao shot up. His expression was cold, his eyes icy. He was experiencing unprecedented power as 64 great circle nascent souls, battle prowess coursed through him. Such power compared to nothing. He was thoroughly above everything, the number one person under spirit severing in all of South Heaven's sects, clans, and chosen. In fact, he was halfway to spirit severing. 7 animas combined, 7 nascent souls combined. His expression cold, he shot forward. Approaching the lightning bolt, he employed no divine abilities nor magical techniques, his movements deliberate and calculated. As they neared, Meng Hao lifted his hand and pointed a finger. The finger caused a huge roaring sound. The lightning bolt looked as if slammed by incredible force. It was sent tumbling backward, then exploded. Moments later, it reformed 30 meters away, more blurry than before. Countless lightning bolts exploded on Meng Hao's body, writhing on his skin. He suddenly laughed. That's all you've got, he said, killing intent glittering in his eyes. In the seventh anima, with the power of 64 great circle nascent souls, electricity couldn't hurt him. The lightning bolt reappeared off in the distance. Meng Hao moved forward, a rumbling sound heard as his body disappeared. When it reappeared, it was directly in front of the lightning bolt. The speed was incredible. It happened in a blink of an eye. His eyes cold, Meng Hao clenched his right hand and slammed it into the bolt's chest. Bam! The lightning bolt's body began exploding. Before it shattered, its hand shot out claw-like to scrape at Meng Hao's chest. The sound was like metal crashing against metal. His clothing tore to shreds, the claw ripping his skin, but it couldn't penetrate further. It could only scratch. The lightning bolt stared in shock. A booming sounded as it completely exploded. Innumerable flashes rolled out. 30 meters away, they congealed together again. Meng Hao didn't glance at the injury. Such a flesh wound was inconsequential. His body flickered and disappeared. Moments later, he reappeared above the lightning bolt. Time to end this, he said coolly as he hovered. He raised his hand and chopped it down. Violet Chi Guillotine. A simple magical technique coalescing violet chi into an enormous curved blade hundreds of meters long. As it chopped down, the lightning bolt felt deadly crisis. Its body exploded with lightning glow. The light coalesced into an enormous lightning globe. The instant the globe appeared, the guillotine sliced into it. Popping sounds came from the sphere, seemingly countless lightning bolts roaring. However, it couldn't prevent itself from being chopped apart. In a few breaths, rumbling booms filled the air as the sphere collapsed into pieces. The human-shaped lightning bolt, now nearly transparent, was revealed. Before it could move, the guillotine slashed onto it. A boom sounded as the figure was cut in half. Rumbling sounds echoed as the lightning bolt, cut in half, collapsed into pieces, transforming into a glow that spread and faded. By the time it vanished, the clouds had long dissipated, the sky back to normal. Meng Hao returned from the seventh anima to the first. His face was pale, and he looked extremely tired. The seventh anima takes a toll on my body and longevity. I can't stay in it long without injuring myself. He descended to the sea's surface and sat cross-legged to breathe deeply and restore himself. Compared to the seventh anima, the sixth is less draining. The fewer nascent souls I combine, the less waste and the more I can ignore it. These are my seven anima's soul transformations. His eyes shined brightly. The struggle with the resurrection lily, the battle against tribulation, the creation of the seven animas, all testified that he had stepped onto the path of a truly powerful expert. From now on, my travels in South Heaven will be boundless. Meng Hao can go anywhere. He looked toward the east, the direction of the eastern lands and Great Tang. His past dream was always to travel there, and he had never forgotten it. Now he was finally qualified to cross the Milky Way Sea and visit that place. Meng Hao's heart suddenly quivered. His divine sense sank into the blood-colored mask, coalescing near the mastiff. He was pleasantly surprised that along with his rise in cultivation, the mastiff was almost awake. It wouldn't be long before it could leave the mask's world and exist in South Heaven. Meng Hao retracted his divine sense. Smiling, he took a deep breath and closed his eyes to adjust his cultivation base. During pacifying the tribulation, he had sustained some internal injuries. For more than 100 years, the western desert skies had been dark and overcast. Now, perhaps because of the tribulation, they were sunny and bright, the first time in very long. Light pierced the clouds to fall on the violet sea. The result was indescribably beautiful. Meng Hao sat in the middle of it on the sea's surface. His body was no longer fearsomely powerful. Instead, the air of a scholar emanated from him. He sat there peacefully, eyes closed. The entire world seemed beautiful and calm. Only gently undulating waves moved. Unfortunately, a few days later, some uninvited guests disturbed the tranquility. There was a sedan chair carried by four black-robed men who looked somewhat distorted, as if they existed halfway between being illusory and real. The sedan chair's curtains had long since been opened, and within could be seen a middle-aged man dressed in expensive clothing. He was currently drinking some fine alcohol. Laying next to him was a withered corpse. The corpse was naked and looked old, as if it had just been dug out of a grave. If you looked closely, though, you could see that the desiccated corpse had once been a beautiful woman. As of now, her life force had long since vanished. A fatal wound could be seen, a dark bruise on her neck. Her neck itself was twisted at an odd angle, making the entire picture a ghastly sight. The person who had killed her was currently leaning up against her corpse, drinking fine alcohol and gently caressing her. "How strange," said the man. "The miracle lightning was obviously gathering in this area. It's gone now, though, as of a few days ago. How come there doesn't seem to be anything at all in the area?" This middle-aged man was none other than the man who had left the second outpost city that day, Huyan. He was the only son of spirit-severing patriarch Huyan Yunaming of the Heavenly Pursuit tribe, one of the three major powers of the Heavenly Court Alliance. Surrounding the sedan chair were 7 old men, who followed along silently. Among the 7, the strongest was an old man named Wu, who was shockingly of the great circle of the nascent soul stage. A cultivation base like that would make him an incredible power in any area. Even spirit-severing patriarchs would pay close attention to such a figure and spare no effort to enlist their services. Having heard the Huyan words, the old men instantly began to chuckle and offer up words of encouragement. "Young master, there's no need to be anxious. There are no living people in this part of the sea. If a precious treasure really did appear in the area, then it will belong to nobody except you." "That's right. Besides, when we arrived, we checked the area and even set up spell formations. We could tell from a distance that the undulations of the tribulation lightning had vanished, and that was when we entered. We are certainly the first people to enter the area to investigate." The only person who didn't speak was Sir Wu. He frowned as he looked around. He wasn't sure why, but after entering this area, he seemed to have the jitters. It was as if this was an area of grave danger, as if some terrifying presence were lurking about. The feeling was indistinct and mysterious. However, Sir Wu couldn't stop thinking about it. Even as the group was proceeding along as normal, they all suddenly stopped. All eyes came to fall on a young man off in the distance. He wore a green robe and was sitting cross-legged on the surface of the water, meditating. He looked like the type of person who would bring harm to neither humans nor animals. He seemed clean and peaceful, and exuded the air of a scholar as he sat there cross-legged and unmoving. It was impossible to clearly see the level of his cultivation base. At first glance it was of the early nascent soul stage, but upon closer inspection it seemed to be of the mid-nascent soul stage. After that, it jumped to the late nascent soul stage. For a moment it even seemed as if it might be at the Great Circle. The sight of it instantly caused Sir Wu to be on guard. In fact, looking at Meng Hao caused him to feel as if a needle were pricking the back of his neck. The feeling caused his eyes to glow. For some reason, he had the feeling that there was something not quite right about this person. The other 6 nascent soul cultivators were all surprised and wore serious expressions. For a strange cultivator to suddenly appear in a bizarre place like this was something that would obviously cause them to be cautious. Note from Urgent: I really like the title of this chapter. There is absolutely no hipster or fake feeling about it. It makes me think of a Korean movie I saw once. The name of that movie was I Saw the Devil. I originally planned to call the chapter I Saw Meng Hao, but in the end I called it I Saw the Nightmare. Chapter 529, Seeking Death Repeatedly. Despite their caution, they judged that even with this person's high cultivation, they numbered 7 with 1 great circle nascent soul, 2 late nascent soul, and 4 mid-stage. Such a force was ultimately powerful. Why else would Huyan Yunaming send them to escort his only son? Still, all felt something was off, though they couldn't place why. Hey, someone's meditating out here," said Huyan Qing with a scornful laugh. He leaned against the corpse as he looked at Meng Hao. "Look up and tell me your name. Also, take out your bag of holding. Whatever precious treasure caused the miracle lightning will be on your person." He couldn't see Meng Hao's cultivation base, but in his entire life he'd never actually looked at anyone's. He didn't need to, it wasn't necessary. His father was a spirit-severing patriarch. That was enough. Throughout his life, it didn't matter who he dealt with. He never cared about their cultivation base. Because of his father's stage, anyone daring to provoke him would end up dead in body and spirit. This had been proven countless times, making Huyan Qing comfortably arrogant. However, Sir Wu's face flickered and his body quivered. He suddenly realized why he had such an odd feeling. This young man is sitting, cross-legged on the violet sea itself. Sir Wu gasped, his mind trembling. He had felt something off but overlooked the violet sea. Now he realized this man sat directly on top of a thick aura of death. Even he feared touching the sea and wouldn't do so long. At the same time, the other 6 cultivators' faces fell. Their eyes went wide, realizing how fearsome Meng Hao was. In the moment they came to the same realization, Meng Hao's eyes snapped open. He looked over them, his gaze falling upon Huyan Qing. Except Sir Wu, all felt their minds shake. Meng Hao's gaze was like a stabbing sword piercing their minds, transforming into roaring. Sir Wu looked intensely concentrated. The Great Circle of the Nascent Soul Stage. He's of the Great Circle. All 6 cultivators had the same reaction. Deep in their hearts they breathed sighs of relief. The Great Circle of Nascent Soul Stage didn't frighten them. Sir Wu was also Great Circle. Furthermore, they were backed by the Heavenly Pursuit Tribe and Patriarch Huyan. As Meng Hao's gaze fell on Huyan Qing, a roaring filled his brain and his body trembled. His wine cup dropped to the floor, spilling alcohol. His hands stroking the corpse began to shake. Meng Hao retracted his gaze, ignoring the group. "What you're looking for isn't here. Go away." Meng Hao had sensed them long before they arrived. He knew their goal, and his piercing gaze was merely a threat and warning. Having finished, Meng Hao closed his eyes again. Now that Meng Hao had retracted his gaze, Huyan Qing came to his senses. He took a deep breath, and his eyes went wide as he glared hatefully at Meng Hao. "Such gall!" he cried. Some people facing Meng Hao's threat would retreat. Others, due to their background, couldn't accept such a threat. People with low cultivation but incredible arrogance would only have their pride wounded. Huyan Qing was such a person. The shame fueled his anger. He couldn't accept being threatened to the extent he felt fear. He was Patriarch Huyan's only son, a noble chosen of the Heavenly Pursuit Tribe. Virtually no one in the Black Lands would provoke him. Wherever he went, he was a blazing sun everyone respected. Yet here he had been threatened by a cultivator's gaze. His dignity had been threatened. From childhood until now, no cultivator had dared act aggressively toward him. Meng Hao's actions seemed normal to others, but to Hu Yanqing it was wild arrogance. For years he existed far above others. No one had levied such a gaze against him or made his mind tremble. He had just been humiliated in a way he couldn't accept. Kill him this instant, he roared, rising to his feet, his face twisted with rage. No one has ever dared such a thing. You're dead. Sir Wu's face sank. He had known Hu Yanqing never thought things through and was arrogant and despotic, but never imagined he'd be this idiotic. There was no good reason for Hu Yanqing to make this demand. This man had merely looked at them and spoken some non-threatening words. For someone of the great circle of nascent soul stage, his vague words were ordinary. Sir Wu was about to speak when suddenly the four black-robed men's eyes filled with killing intent. They vanished and reappeared surrounding Meng Hao. Each held a gleaming flying sword. Filled with killing intent, they charged. Meng Hao sighed softly. He hadn't wanted to kill. He was like a tree wanting peace, except the wind wouldn't stop. Well, in that case you won't be leaving, said Meng Hao coolly as his eyes opened, ignoring the incoming swords. The moment his eyes opened, indescribable killing intent rose to the heavens. It exploded with shocking intensity, causing the clouds to churn and everything to dim. He was like a primordial beast climbing up from the depths. The killing intent was thick and invisible, but as it emanated out, the four black-robed men's faces fell. They were vicious cultivators who would kill without hesitation. Over the years, they had killed many. Normally cold and detached, facing such indescribable killing intent caused their faces to fall. Compared to Meng Hao, their killing intent were like fireflies, whereas Meng Hao was the bright moon. This was only 10% of Meng Hao's killing intent. Bang! Four flying swords exploded into fragments that transformed into ash. The black-robed men's bodies shook, blood spraying from their mouths. Their minds felt crushed, as if under massive power. They tumbled backward, but before they could fall 30 meters, their heads exploded. Their mangled bodies fell into the violet sea, sinking beneath the waves. Deathly silence filled the air. Hu Yanqing's eyes went wide with disbelief. The 7 cultivators' faces were unprecedentedly serious. 6 instantly moved to surround Hu Yanqing. Sir Wu appeared in front of them, his face grim as he looked at Meng Hao. "Fellow Taoist," Sir Wu said, clasping his hands, "we are from the Heavenly Pursuit tribe of the Heavenly Court Alliance in the Black Lands. Everything was a misunderstanding. Please forgive us." Meng Hao looked at him coldly, then at the others. Hearing they were from the Heavenly Court Alliance, he thought of the Golden Crow clan. He slowly nodded. "Since it was a misunderstanding, we can let it drop. Please leave post-haste." Sir Wu heaved an inward sigh of relief. Though of the great circle nascent soul stage, the pressure from Meng Hao was incredible. He had no desire to fight. However, as Sir Wu was about to clasp hands in retreat, Hu Yanqing's eyes filled with savage light. "So this guy puts on a strong front but is actually a weakling." Hu Yanqing had been shocked and filled with fear when Meng Hao killed his guards. But seeing he was willing to compromise after hearing of the Heavenly Pursuit tribe, his heart filled with evil thoughts. "I said kill him," he said grimly. "All of you kill him," he laughed coldly. "Sir Wu, you promised my father you'd keep me safe and help my cultivation. This guy's cultivation base is incredible and I want it. Kill him, and before he dies I'll consume it." His eyes radiated intense light as he lifted his hand, holding out a command medallion. "I order you all, kill him." Meng Hao's expression never changed. He watched calmly as the scene unfolded. After the medallion appeared, Sir Wu and the 6 others' faces instantly fell. Moments later, 4 performed minor teleportations approaching him. All they had to do was pin him. Sir Wu would do the killing. "Oh well," sighed Sir Wu, "this guy is just unlucky." Clenching his teeth, he turned toward Meng Hao. His great circle nascent soul cultivation base exploded with power. "You're dead," Hu Yanqing laughed maniacally. As the 4 neared, Meng Hao's eyes glittered with desire to kill. The killing intent that exploded was 30%. "Looking to die," he said coolly. The killing intent roared out, causing the 4 men's faces to fill with astonishment. Suddenly, Meng Hao vanished like a ghost. When he reappeared, he was behind one. His expression cool, his hair whipping about, he lifted his right hand and tapped the man. Death aura and life force mingled, transforming into a fearsome power of extermination. The cultivator was absolutely powerless to resist and instantly exploded. This chapter was sponsored by Sazalak Aquinish, Ali Alcantit, Norris Gilmore, Louis Val, and Michael Allen. Chapter 530, Slaughter. From the beginning, Meng Hao kept his cultivation base in the first anima, with the battle prowess of one great circle nascent soul. Because of his incredible foundation, his battle prowess far exceeded anyone in the same stage. His attack exploded with the power of extermination. The exterminating power stemmed from Meng Hao's violet sea and blood totems, combining into a powerful water-type totem containing both life and death. In his hands, it formed an essence that could send life back to dust. The mid-nascent soul cultivator's death happened incredibly quickly, in a blink of an eye. Everyone watching was instantly shaken. Even Hu Yanqing's wicked smile froze on his face. Sir Wu took a deep breath. He realized that although he could kill a mid-nascent soul cultivator, he couldn't do so as casually as Meng Hao just had. Now that we've attacked, we have to kill him, he thought, sighing inwardly. His eyes glittered with killing intent as he attacked, shooting toward Meng Hao. As he neared, his right hand lifted in a clawing gesture. Instantly, the air transformed into a yellow river filled with roaring waters and yellow sand, like a yellow dragon sweeping out. In a blink, it enveloped the entire area and became a spell formation. Within the formation, yellow sand roared into the air. A raging wind screamed, transforming into a vortex. It was like a wind dragon and yellow dragon interlocked, pinning Meng Hao. At the same time, killing intent radiated from Sir Wu's eyes. His body flickered as he entered the formation, his right hand flashing an incantation. Countless green leaves magically appeared, each containing destructive power. They swirled around, congealing to form sharp swords. Almost in the moment the formation finished, Sir Wu closed in on Meng Hao. Meng Hao suddenly disappeared again. When he reappeared, he was next to another mid-nascent soul cultivator. He reached out leisurely toward the shocked man, then tapped his forehead. Bam! The power of extermination appeared. The cultivator's body instantly exploded. As he died, another cultivator suddenly appeared behind Meng Hao. 9 spinning awls rotated around his body, sending out pulsing whimpers, surrounded by a pulsating green aura filled with toxic poison. The aura blasted against Meng Hao's face. Meng Hao's expression remained calm as he ignored the poison weapons. He raised his hand and pointed. Demon Sealing 8th Hex. The finger cast a powerful hex, causing the late nascent soul cultivator's body to shake. He suddenly stopped moving, stuck in midair. His magical items fell into the violet sea. His body hovered motionless, shock on his face as his cultivation base was completely sealed. He couldn't feel shocked long because Meng Hao passed him and flicked his sleeve. Roaring waves suddenly surged up from the violet sea, completely submerging him. Meanwhile, Sir Wu was closing in. Meng Hao turned, completely ignoring him. He waved his arm, causing a bloody glow to rise up. An enormous blood-colored face suddenly appeared. This was the blood immortal divine ability. Meng Hao didn't need to wear the mask to unleash it anymore. The great circle nascent soul stage's battle power gathered within the blood-colored face. Sir Wu's face filled with shock as it slammed into him with an enormous boom. The leaves shattered and he was sent tumbling backward, blood spraying from his mouth. Before he could emerge from the sandstorm formation, Meng Hao teleported behind him and lifted his right hand to point. Boom! A jade slip appeared in front of Sir Wu. It emanated a soft glow resisting Meng Hao's finger, but only lasted 3 breaths before collapsing. Sir Wu coughed up more blood but used those 3 breaths to employ a blood escape technique. As the technique unleashed, Meng Hao's cold voice sounded in his ear. Blood. A single word, but it caused a roaring to fill Sir Wu's body. Even in his escape, he was injured again. His face fell. Disregarding the pain, he quickly retrieved a second jade slip and crushed it. Another shield spread out to defend against Meng Hao's second attack. A popping sound rang out as the shield shattered. Sir Wu finally fled outside the formation. He lifted his head and roared. Hair disheveled, he performed a double-handed incantation, causing the sandstorm to whip about and block the area between him and Meng Hao. As soon as the sandstorm touched Meng Hao, he stopped, unable to continue forward. He looked up at Sir Wu on the other side, wiping blood from his mouth and staring back tenaciously. Sir Wu was filled with shock. Their brief encounter made him realize how valiant and fearsome Meng Hao was. Without the 2 life-saving jade slips from Patriarch Huyan, he would have perished. Guard the formation with all your power, he said through clenched teeth. This man must die. The faces of the remaining 3 cultivators were pale. The scene had left them completely shaken. Hu Yanqing's eyes were wide with disbelief. The sandstorm filled with shocking killing intent closed in around Meng Hao. Outside, Sir Wu's eyes filled with a strange glow. He flashed an incantation, causing the sandstorm to tighten. The other 3 cultivators went all out to assist. Meng Hao began to move forward. Booming sounds filled the air as the wind and yellow dragons roared and interlocked. His body trembled and he was forced backward a few paces, his eyes shining. "Interesting," he said coolly. "It has impressive sealing power." Outside the formation, Sir Wu smiled coldly and performed an incantation. 8 dragons defense expulsion. Suddenly, more wind and yellow dragons appeared. 8 dragons cycled about. Each grain of sand had the power of an early nascent soul stage cultivation. The sand congealed, rapidly transforming into more than 10 figures. More figures appeared. This was Sir Wu's trump card. Considering how seriously he took Meng Hao, he didn't hesitate to unleash its true power. This was not a formation, but the magical manifestation of a divine ability. In the past, he had relied on its power to kill 3 powerful experts of his level. Seeing Meng Hao couldn't escape, Hu Yanqing breathed a sigh of relief, laughing. "Let's see how you charge out now. Sir Wu's sandstorm noose has even my father's praise. You're dead. No one provokes me. Since you dared threaten me, you'll die." Meng Hao smiled coldly. As the formation rotated, 4 dragons emitted roars of shocking power. Over 20 congealed sand figures appeared. Each possessed a mid-nascent soul stage cultivation base. Harboring no fear, they charged toward Meng Hao. "Burst," howled Sir Wu. This was the deadly function, self-detonation. Every detonation was equivalent to a mid-nascent soul self-detonation. The power of 20 such detonations would strike fear into even the great circle of nascent soul stage. By relying on this, Sir Wu had earned high reputation in the Heavenly Pursuit tribe. Throughout the Black Lands, he was ranked among the most powerful experts under spirit severing. Patriarch Huyan wouldn't have assigned him otherwise. His expression calm and his heart proud, he looked coldly at Meng Hao. "No matter how shocking your cultivation base, within my 8 dragons formation, you can only curse your fortune. No one else to blame." The 3 old men outside wore expressions of pleasant surprise and vicious intent, smiling coldly as they looked at the seemingly trapped Meng Hao. Hu Yanqing's laughter became ear-splitting. Within the formation, Meng Hao watched the 20 figures self-detonate, then said coolly, "Interesting. I never imagined coming out of secluded meditation would bring me someone so strong. You have the qualifications to make me enter my second anima." Boom! His body instantly grew more powerful. He grew half a head taller, shoulders widened. He was filled with the battle prowess of 2 great circle nascent souls. When he looked up, his eyes shone brightly. Popping sounds came from within as his aura climbed. Instantly, the cultivators outside filled with shock. The more than 20 self-detonations exploded out. The power was shocking, but Meng Hao's expression was the same. He moved forward through the explosions, which didn't even make him tremble. Sir Wu gasped. His pupils constricted. The 3 others were even more astonished. Just what cultivation base does he have? As shock trembled their hearts, Meng Hao shot up into the air. He flew with incredible speed toward Sir Wu. A boom sounded as he burst from the formation. The 8 dragons roared and tried to encircle him, but Meng Hao waved his hand. 8 enormous blood-red faces appeared and exploded, transforming into an attack sweeping out. 8 howls sounded as the dragons shredded. The formation shuddered 3 times and collapsed. Everyone outside was filled with shock. Meng Hao disappeared, then reappeared directly in front of Sir Wu. The collapse caused Sir Wu to cough up blood. However, he was an old hand at close combat. Without hesitation, he fell back, both hands flashing an incantation. Wind and sand surrounded him, forming a shield, along with a 3rd jade slip. Unfortunately, as soon as Meng Hao appeared, he pointed. The shield ripped apart. The jade slip lasted only a single breath before collapsing. Sir Wu let out a miserable cry as Meng Hao's finger tapped his forehead. One tap. Bam! The power of extermination exploded within Sir Wu. His body exploded in all directions. Though he was Great Circle Nascent Soul, Meng Hao now had twice that power. Sir Wu couldn't possibly fight back. Chapter 531, Karma Threads. The 3 old men off to the side were shaking, their faces filled with dumbstruck despair. Fear inundated their hearts. This shadow of death far exceeded their mission from Patriarch Huyan. Without hesitation, The three cultivators turned and used their most powerful escape arts to flee at top speed. One, of the mid-nascent soul stage, crushed a violet jade slip, a violet glow surrounding him and propelling him away with explosive speed. Another mid-nascent soul cultivator, having witnessed Sir Wu's blood escape fail and how he was injured by it, didn't dare use that technique. Instead, he drew upon his nascent soul's life power, ignoring that it withered. He shot away at incredible speed. The final cultivator, the highest cultivation base at late nascent soul stage, produced a feng shui compass from his bag and tossed it ahead. It emanated three glowing bands that stabbed the air and ripped open a fissure. Without looking back, he dove into it, escape his only thought. He was completely shaken and filled with ultimate dread by Meng Hao. As for Xianxia, he was completely stunned by what happened. His body shook and his breath came in ragged pants. His scalp was numb, his heart filled with intense regret. Seeing Sir Wu explode drained his face of blood, cold sweat breaking out. Meng Hao flicked his sleeve, sweeping away Sir Wu's remaining gore. At the same time, he pointed his index finger. Several blood drops flew toward him from the gore. They congealed on his fingertip into a glittering drop. This was heart blood from a great circle nascent soul cultivator's death. Meng Hao looked at it a moment, then flung his hand, causing it to split into three parts, shooting toward the fleeing cultivator surrounded by violet qi. The blood transformed into a streak of red as it shot through the air. At the same time, Meng Hao grasped. The devil's spear appeared with an excited howl. Black mist roiled out, filled with ferocious faces. Strangely, once the faces saw Meng Hao, they trembled and grew quiet. Meng Hao hefted the spear and tossed it out. The ferocious faces howled as they shot toward the cultivator, burning his nascent soul to flee. Having done this, Meng Hao looked at the late nascent soul cultivator halfway through the fissure. The fissure seemed on the verge of closing. Meng Hao slapped his bag of holding, causing an emerald glow. A very ordinary fishing rod appeared in his hands. As soon as he held it, Meng Hao's entire aura changed. It grew blurry, as if his body were merging into the air. When Xianxia looked at him, he felt cold, as if looking at a predator he was helpless to resist. Except this was not a predator. This was a crushing power from a life force levels above him, something that could wrest his life at any moment. It was impossible to describe the feeling in Xianxia's heart. He was panting, his body trembling. The fear now far exceeded any he had felt before. The two fleeing mid-nascent soul old men were also trembling, sensing a pressure far exceeding their level. It quickly enveloped their hearts and minds. Their bodies trembled and their souls shook. Their karma was suddenly visible. What is this? Most frightened was the late nascent soul cultivator who had just passed through the fissure. Although on the other side, in a different world, the trembling of his soul had reached an intense peak. It was as if incredible coldness were blasting his body. What is this? Meng Hao's expression was calm as he gripped the fishing rod. The world suddenly looked different, colorless, but bright, colorful lights were visible on top of the people's heads. Meng Hao looked at Xianxia. A mass of bright, colorful threads appeared on top of his head. Shockingly, one was bright red and incredibly thick, clearly different from the others. Xianxia's body trembled violently. Meng Hao's gaze and aura were thousands of times more terrifying than before. His earlier look was merely a threat, but now Xianxia felt his soul growing cold. It was as if his entire life, all his secrets, were clearly visible. It seemed all Meng Hao had to do was wish it, and he would instantly die. Such a death would not be ordinary, filling him with indescribable fear. Death was frightening, but dying at Meng Hao's hands would be infinitely more miserable. When Meng Hao looked at the other two fleeing cultivators, they experienced the same feeling. He could clearly see the brightly colorful threads on their heads. They too had an incredibly thick, red thread different from the others. Those threads caused Meng Hao's face to flicker almost undetectably. "So these are karma threads," murmured Meng Hao. He looked at the trembling old man on the other side of the disappearing fissure. He had even more threads attached to his head. "What a pity," Meng Hao said, shaking his head. "Based on my understanding of karma, I can't do what Jai 19 did and sever it. However," his eyes glinting fiercely, he waved the fishing rod. Instantly, a fishing line flew out. It moved so fast it didn't seem to move. It instantly appeared in front of the old cultivator. The old man suddenly felt something infinitely terrifying. Others couldn't hear his blood-curdling scream, but Meng Hao could. The line wrapped around him. When Meng Hao pulled back, the man's soul was ripped from his body. His nascent soul rapidly withered and his body turned pale white as he died. As the fishing line returned, Meng Hao reached out and grabbed the soul, then crushed it. As the soul dissipated, Meng Hao's mind filled with a roaring sound. He suddenly realized he had a much deeper comprehension of karma, though he wasn't sure he could explain it. When Hu Yanqing saw this, he could only scream with intense terror. The other two cultivators were shaking as they fled madly. Note from Urgen, only 2,000 Chinese characters. This is the 4th update for today, and I'm worried that all of you are getting anxious, so I'm just going to post the chapter. I'm going to go eat and then take a chilly walk to clear my head. Then, I'll continue to write the rest of this content. It's really cold today here in Mutingjiang Prefecture. It snowed heavily and is Celsius. This chapter was sponsored by Joshua Lee, Andrew Miller, Graham Kemp, and Patrick Cizagzinski. Chapter 532, The Death of Hu Yanqing. The pursuing drops of blood caught up with their target, stabbed through the cultivator, then exploded along with his body. The other cultivator, despite his incredible speed, could not move faster than the devil's spear. It whistled through the air and stabbed into him. Instantly, black mist enveloped him. Excited, ferocious faces pounced, and a blood-curdling scream filled the air. When it faded, only a skeleton remained. From the time the 3 men began to flee, until they all died took only about 10 breaths. Meng Hao put the fishing rod away and turned to look at Hu Yanqing. When Meng Hao's gaze fell on him, Hu Yanqing fell backward, trembling and bumping against the sedan chair. "Early nascent soul cultivation base," said Meng Hao coolly. What a pity. This was the weakest early nascent soul cultivation base he had ever seen. "All right, who's your father?" he continued, his expression unchanged. He no longer acted impulsively. He could tell that such intrepid guards meant this man had a background beyond the ordinary. The thick red threads attached to the heads of these people raised questions. Furthermore, the man had mentioned that his father had praised the spell formation of that great circle nascent soul cultivator. He had revealed this inadvertently while bragging. Meng Hao put the pieces together easily. How could he not understand the meaning? Hu Yanqing stared in shock. He had planned to shout out information about his father to impress Meng Hao. Who could have imagined that Meng Hao would ask first? Hu Yanqing was perturbed and trembling. However, he shouted, "My father is Hu Yanming, spirit-severing patriarch of the Heavenly Pursuit tribe from the Heavenly Court Alliance in the Black Lands. If you dare to kill me, my father won't let you go. It doesn't matter where you're from or who you are. If you dare to hurt me, you're dead beyond the shadow of a doubt." As he continued, the words came more smoothly. This was what he had originally planned to say to Meng Hao. That Meng Hao had asked first had thrown his rhythm into chaos. "I have no plans to kill you," said Meng Hao with a chuckle. "You may leave." Killing a few nascent soul cultivators was nothing, and Meng Hao had no feud with this man. Besides, he was the heir of a spirit-severing patriarch. He would certainly be equipped with life-saving magical items. If Meng Hao tried to kill him, it would be troublesome and would expose his identity. He well knew that if Hu Yanqing died, Patriarch Huyan would hunt him down. Although he might evade Patriarch Huyan, his identity would be exposed. And the whole Golden Crow clan's safety would be in danger. That was why he had let Sir Wu and the others leave. Unfortunately, Hu Yanqing didn't know what was good for him and used his powerful bodyguards to attack. Meng Hao slaughtered them, and now alone, Hu Yanqing would be calmer. Even he knew that some people weren't to be provoked. Meng Hao thought that since he hadn't killed the man, Hu Yanqing wouldn't harbor resentment. He had been shaken by the scene. Moreover, Meng Hao left a strand of divine sense on Hu Yanqing. When he returned to his father, Patriarch Huyan, the divine sense would be discovered and provide a complete explanation. Only people of extraordinary intelligence can become spirit-severing patriarchs. Meng Hao was confident the man would accept the matter silently and not rage. "You're not going to kill me?" asked Hu Yanqing, staring in shock. He sensed that the reason had nothing to do with fear of his father, though he didn't know the real reason. Without hesitation, he clenched his teeth and fled at top speed, producing a Jade slip to summon other Heavenly Pursuit tribe members in the area. Meng Hao ignored Hu Yanqing's departure. He crossed his legs and meditated. He had decided to wait here before meeting Xianxia to go to the primordial demon immortal plane. As he meditated and inspected his 7 nascent souls, a daring idea took shape. Right now I have 7 nascent souls and a divine sense with a range of 29,999 meters. 30,000 meters is the range of spirit severing. Could I form an 8th nascent soul? What about 9? If that happened and my divine sense broke through, I would be comparable to the spirit severing stage. Could this aid my understanding of spirit severing? At this thought, Meng Hao panted. His eyes began to shine brightly. After a moment, he realized such a possibility wasn't realistic. I need to think more carefully about this. After I try it, I'll have a better idea of how feasible it is. The one-color soul procurement pill is quite interesting. According to legend, it's only supposed to be effective once. However, it clearly worked twice for me. He'd considered several possible explanations. The foundation he had built was likely rare even in ancient times. He had reached the 13th level of qi condensation, formed a perfect foundation with 10 Tao pillars, reached the great circle of the perfect gold core, and combined the 5 elements. Although it couldn't be called completely unprecedented, it came close. Moreover, the 3 great miraculous medicines are rare. Even in ancient times, few people would have consumed even one. For the one-color soul procurement pill, consuming 2 wouldn't be much different from consuming 1. Only by consuming many would one see the cumulative effects. Ancient cultivators couldn't be so wasteful and would naturally assume it would only be effective if consumed once. That would be their understanding. Thus, the rise of the legends. Meng Hao sat there, lost in thought. Huyanqing fled for several days without stopping. By then, he had received replies from several Heavenly Pursuit tribe members speeding toward him. They should arrive within the time it takes an incense stick to burn. Now Huyanqing breathed a sigh of relief. He knew Meng Hao would let him go, but as he thought of his fearsomeness, he laughed bitterly. The grave terror he'd experienced had enlightened him greatly. He felt some resentment, but recalling Meng Hao's terror, he sighed with relief. Might as well forget about it, he thought. To tell the truth, it was me who provoked him. He might be willing to let me go, but if I keep acting the way I did before, eventually I will run into someone who will kill me. Even if my father gets revenge, that wouldn't help me. This will be a turning point in my life. From now on, I won't be like that. I'm going to rise to prominence. His eyes filled with a stubborn glow as he made his decision. After he returned to the tribe, he would immediately enter secluded meditation. He would cast off his arrogance and focus on increasing his cultivation base. He would never allow himself to experience such terror again. However, even as Huyanqing murmured to himself, a cold laugh rang out from behind him. His face flickered as he spun around. Behind him was a black-robed youth. The instant Huyanqing saw his face and the killing intent in his eyes, he hoarsely stammered, You said you were going to let me go." The black-robed youth grabbed Huyanqing's neck and crushed it viciously. A cracking sound rang out. Huyanqing's eyes went wide with unyielding regret and confusion. He didn't understand why he'd been told he'd be set free, only to be hunted down and attacked. He didn't understand why the life-saving treasures his father gave him didn't activate. As his eyes dimmed and death approached, the light faded. He realized that this person was different from the fearsome cultivator before. He looked the same, but there were differences. However, he could not voice those thoughts. A boom rang out as his body exploded into a haze of blood. The black-robed youth smiled, his eyes glowing red. Just when he was about to leave, the violet sea beneath him surged with massive waves. He heard a roar of fury from the seawater. Damn it, this far away and he can still sense things. So he was in demonic transmigration. The youth's face fell, his heart pounding. He disappeared. However, in that moment, 3 days' journey away, Meng Hao sat cross-legged on the sea's surface, his fury burning. He shot into the air, the power of a rock exploding within him. He flew forward at incredible speed. Sonic booms split the air as he shot toward the black-robed youth. "You dare to frame me." Note from Deathblade. So, should I have hidden the chapter title or not? Chapter 533, Chase and Kill. Meng Hao's voice rang from the violet sea. It roared like thunder, causing the black-robed youth's face to fall. He transformed into a streak of black and shot off. "If I'd known he could detect me, I would have held off longer," said the black-robed youth through gritted teeth. "Damn it, I wasted an opportunity. Now he knows about me sooner than expected." His face flickered as he pushed forward at maximum speed. This was none other than the human-form Black Bat Cultivator. Years ago, it had been awed by Meng Hao's demonic transmigration and fled. Later, sensing Meng Hao's return, it carefully avoided attracting his attention. It knew it couldn't wrest the true spirit sword from Meng Hao through its own power, so it used one person to kill another. The result was Huyanqing's death. Even though he detected me, my plan still worked. Patriarch Huyan will certainly sense his son's death. The black-robed youth's eyes glittered as he pushed forward even faster. As he fled, Meng Hao's face grew grim. The power of a rock exploded around him, giving him incredible speed. Sonic booms echoed as he shot toward the black-robed youth. He could pinpoint the location because of the violet sea and the strand of divine sense he'd left on Xianxia. Distance didn't matter. The youth remained within Meng Hao's range. Who is this person? Thought Meng Hao, his face dark. Why does he look so much like me? He doesn't appear to be in disguise. This is his true appearance. Meng Hao took time to analyze the young man using his locating technique. After an incense stick burned, his eyes widened. The black badge. Although much had changed, a faint branding remained, placed by Meng Hao years ago and impossible to remove. Meng Hao's eyes glittered with killing intent. Killing Xianxia was a bald-faced attempt to frame him and would be hard to explain. It would depend on how Patriarch Huyan reacted. His face darkened, eyes filled with determination. He stopped thinking about Xianxia and focused all his killing intent on the black-robed youth. The distance between them grew shorter. Meng Hao's speed seemed limitless. The black-robed youth was incredibly fast but couldn't compare to Meng Hao. I must change my plan, he thought. I can't stay in the western desert any longer. Even if he discovered my plan to frame him, he can't catch me within a day. In a day, I'll be gone from the western desert. As he sped along, the black-robed youth stopped. He looked around, a cold smile on his face as he calculated with his right hand. It should be nearby. I discovered the teleportation rift to the Milky Way sea here years ago. If it moved at all, it won't be far. His body became a blur as he searched the surroundings. After 2 incense sticks burned, joy filled his eyes. He halted midair and performed a double-handed incantation, then pointed out. Instantly, the air rippled and spread to reveal a dim gray rift. The rift seemed unremarkable. It was sealed. Despite being visible, it flickered unstably. Damn it, the rift is almost gone. I need time to stabilize it before entering. If I remember correctly, 3 rifts like this exist in the western desert. The next nearest is about 7 days away. Not enough time. The youth ground his teeth, face flickering. According to his calculations, Meng Hao couldn't catch him within a day. Repairing would take about 10 hours. Eyes flickering, the black-robed youth immediately sat cross-legged next to the rift. He spat blue blood to brand it. The blood transformed into magical symbols that fused with the rift and repaired it. Meng Hao sped above the violet sea. As soon as he sensed his target had stopped, he frowned. His eyes glittered as he realized the area around the youth contained teleportation power. If uninterrupted, a teleportation portal would open soon. Second anima. Boom! 2 of his nascent souls merged, causing his prowess to surge and his body to strengthen. The power of 2 great circle nascent souls doubled his speed. Combined with the rock's wind power, he moved dramatically faster. Third anima. Fourth anima. Fifth anima, Meng Hao roared through the air. His speed increased, his body strengthened, and his power neared its peak. The 5 elements combination cut the 3-day distance to 14 hours. That wasn't good enough. Every moment his quarry might escape. His eyes glinted with killing intent as he entered the 6th anima. Meng Hao roared as his body expanded. The prowess of 32 great circle nascent souls surged through him, and his speed doubled again. The air cracked as it shattered around him. His speed was indescribable. In the blink of an eye, he was tens of thousands of meters away. He was only about 6 hours from his target. I can still go faster. 7th anima. With a wave of an arm, he entered the 7th anima. His appearance became that of an immortal devil. He now possessed the battle prowess of 64 great circle nascent souls. His speed increased explosively. The 7th anima's speed neared that of spirit severing. After 2 hours, Meng Hao nearly teleported across the violet sea. Suddenly, he appeared near the black-robed youth. When he arrived, the youth had only completed 20% of the repairs. Suddenly, he sensed a screaming wind. The violet sea roared and swirled into a vortex. Deadly crisis filled the youth, fear racing through him. Without looking back, he shot off into the distance. Who's chasing me? Don't tell me it's Patriarch Huyan. Impossible. When I killed Xianxia, I used an ancient time restriction technique. Patriarch Huyan won't detect his son's death for another 2 days. The youth's heart trembled, his face falling. A gale screamed at him from behind at shocking speed. Rumbling filled heaven and earth. Within the wind was a tall figure resembling an immortal devil. He was upon the youth in the blink of an eye. The youth's hair stood on end as he looked back. Meng Hao's grim face reflected in his pupils, and an incoming fist rushed toward him. Having seen Meng Hao's face, the black-robed youth screeched, "Impossible!" Bam! Meng Hao's fist slammed into the belly. It was a punch in the 7th anima, carrying the battle prowess of 64 great circle nascent souls. The power exploded through the youth. A massive roar rang out. Blood sprayed from his mouth, his body falling apart. His stomach caved in, transforming into mangled, bloody flesh. He shot backward, coughing up blood. Astonishment and disbelief filled his expression, his face pale. The power in Meng Hao could annihilate anything. An indescribably fearsome aura filled the youth with terror. "What's impossible, bitch?" said Meng Hao, appearing in front of the youth. "You dare to frame me?" His right hand clenched into a fist again. Bang! The youth shrieked as he tumbled backward again. This time, his abdomen exploded, tearing away his lower half in a spray of blood. Only his upper torso remained. His back ripped open and two huge bat wings unfurled. They blurred as he shot away. "Wanna run?" snorted Meng Hao, his eyes glinting with killing intent as he remained in the seventh anima. His snort made the youth cough up blood. Meng Hao disappeared and reappeared behind him. Fear raced through the youth as Meng Hao reached to grab him. The youth shrieked in misery. He folded his wings to block, but Meng Hao's eyes glinted with killing intent as he grabbed both and pulled hard. The youth screamed as his wings tore away. Blood showered from his mouth. He flashed away. His lower half and wings were gone, his situation dire. Suddenly, the image of a corpse appeared in his left eye. "How can you be so powerful?" he said, his face pale. "This is impossible." Even as he spoke, he chanted. A ghost image appeared around him. Meng Hao tossed the wings away and looked coldly at the youth. "You backstabbing bastard," said Meng Hao. "I helped you unseal yourself that year, giving you power to recover. Despite that, you still try to secretly harm me." With that, he blasted forward. He moved so fast you couldn't see him. Only the youth tumbling backward was visible. Chapter 534. Who's the fisherman now? Ancient or not, the black bat couldn't counterattack against Meng Hao's seventh anima. As it retreated, its body shattered into countless pieces, transforming into thousands of bats. The bats scattered in all directions. Consumed with the desire to kill, Meng Hao snorted coldly and waved his right hand. The devil's spear appeared. He slapped it, sending power from his cultivation base exploding inside. The spear instantly exploded. The resulting black mist expanded, filled with innumerable vicious faces that shot toward the fleeing bats and consumed them. In the blink of an eye, countless shrieks filled the air. After a few breaths, only a few hundred bats remained. The remaining bats reformed. A pop rang out as they transformed into a physical form. This time, it was the enormous black bat, not the black-robed youth. Terror filled the black bat's eyes. The instant it appeared, it tried to flee, but Meng Hao shot forward and appeared before it. The black bat cried out in despair as Meng Hao's finger pushed into its forehead. Layered ripples of destruction swept through its body. Booms rang out as the black bat screamed. Its body exploded into a haze of blood spreading in all directions. Only the head remained, which Meng Hao grabbed and put into his bag of holding. After its death, the surroundings grew quiet and peaceful. Meanwhile, nearly a year's travel away in the western desert north region, at the sea bottom, a corpse sat cross-legged. Half its body was human, the other half beastly. This was the creature from which Meng Hao had acquired the third wooden sword in the Crow divinity Holy Land years ago, and which the black-robed youth had absorbed into his left eye and suppressed. Now the corpse looked different. Bat wings protruded from its back. It sat motionless on the seafloor, lifeless, filled with an aura of death like the violet sea around it. Suddenly, the corpse's empty eyes glowed with light. The glow grew obvious as an aura of life rose within its body. Cracking sounds rang out as it moved its neck. Its rotten lips curved into a cold smile. "Petty cultivator," said the corpse in a grating voice. "He thinks he's clever, but compared to a spirit like me, he's nothing." While congratulating himself on victory, I slipped out like a cicada shedding its skin. "He's powerful, though. Thankfully, I prepared a second body. Even that body wasn't aware my true self had backup. Too bad it was killed. But that's good. Thinking I've perished, he won't see what conflicts develop between him and Patriarch Huyan. When the crane and clam fight, the fisherman benefits, and I am the fisherman." The corpse's smile grew colder and grimmer. This was the true black bat. As it sat at the sea bottom, Meng Hao stood at the location where he'd killed the black-robed youth, frowning. Everything had happened too smoothly, like water poured down a gutter. It was as if nothing had occurred. His profound cultivation base made everything simple. Yet something felt wrong. Muttering, his eyes flickered as he pulled out the Jai clan fishing rod. Strange light flickered in his eyes the instant he touched it. The scattered remains of the black bat suddenly stopped moving. Karma threads covered each piece of flesh and blood. Shockingly, almost all headed the same direction. His eyes flashed in concentration. His will followed the karma threads through the air into the violet sea, north to the seafloor where he saw the corpse with its grim smile. As his gaze fell upon it, the corpse's face flickered in disbelief. At that moment, Meng Hao's will vanished from the karma threads. He returned to normal and put the rod away, his face extremely dark. So something was going on, he said, looking toward the western desert north region, killing intent flickering in his eyes. Back north, the black bat's eyes shone with mysterious light. Fear filled its expression, then suspicion. Finally, it grew grimmer than before. I mustn't underestimate him. How did he find me so easily? It gives me a strange feeling. It rose to its feet and shot up out of the violet sea. I can't stay here. I need to hide in the Milky Way Sea. This Meng Hao is too bizarre. Its body flickered as it flew off. A year's travel away, Meng Hao took a deep breath and sank into the violet sea. He sat cross-legged on the seafloor, eyes shining with killing intent. Far away or not, I still have ways to kill you. He closed his eyes and sent his will out to combine with the violet sea. Meng Hao incarnated into the violet sea much like he had during demonic transmigration. This time he remained awake and wouldn't lose himself. However, this meant he couldn't wield the violet sea's complete power. The instant Meng Hao's will fused with the violet sea, the entire sea churned with enormous waves and roaring filled the air. In the western desert north region, the corpse was speeding along when streaks of blood appeared on its body. Below, the violet sea roared and transformed into a whirlpool. The corpse's face fell. At that moment, a powerful roaring voice came from within the whirlpool. You want to frame Meng Hao and get away? I don't think so. The voice roared like thunder, causing the corpse's face to fall further. It took a deep breath and shot off as fast as possible. As it fled, the violet sea's surface congealed. A gigantic hand stretched up from the deep waters toward the fleeing corpse. The instant the hand touched it, the corpse opened its mouth to speak strange, complex words. The words transformed into a power of another world, filled with ancient archaicness. Boom! The explosive power caused ripples around the corpse. Within them appeared reflections of an ancient world from indefinite ages past. The view was indistinct, but a roaring sound filled the air. The violet sea hand collapsed. The corpse's aura had clearly weakened. Without hesitation, it shot away. However, 8 more enormous hands suddenly rose from the sea, stretching toward the fleeing corpse. Booms rose into the sky, echoing across the sea. The corpse's face filled with astonishment as it spit out life chi. It performed a double-handed incantation, causing undulating power to appear, a magical technique Meng Hao had never seen. It was formed of bizarre magical symbols, each pulsing with power the violet sea couldn't resist. Down in the violet sea, Meng Hao gave a cold snort. As the black bat corpse grew weaker, an enormous face bulged from the sea's surface. The face was Meng Hao's. Though submerged on the seafloor, his will was engaged in fierce battle with the black bat corpse. Meanwhile, back in the Black Lands, in a mountain valley filled with peach blossoms, stood the enormous temple gate of the Heavenly Pursuit tribe. The valley was filled with birdsongs and the lovely fragrance of flowers, like a realm of immortals. In one pavilion were 2 middle-aged men. One sat in meditation, the other stood. One wore black, the other white. However, their facial features were exactly alike. The white-robed man sat cross-legged, unmoving. His will seemed eternally fused with the world. Unless a shocking event rocked the entire tribe, he would remain there unwaking. He was completely immersed in secluded meditation, having spent years stabilizing himself after severing his first spirit and recovering his body. Daily affairs were handled by his divine clone, the black-robed man who stood before him. The black-robed man's face was extremely grim as he looked down at the shattered jade slip in his hand. His eyes radiated grief, then towering viciousness. Someone dared to slay my only son. He was arrogant and often handled himself poorly. But he was my only son, Huyan Yunaming's only son. No one is qualified to chide him, much less kill him. The white-robed man in meditation was Huyan Qing's father, the only spirit-severing cultivator of the Heavenly Pursuit tribe, Patriarch Huyan. The black-robed man, the divine clone, was also the translucent figure Huyan Yunaming had sent after Meng Hao years ago to rob him of the demon spirit. If someone severs the line of Huyan Yunaming, I will exterminate his entire clan. The black-robed man flicked his sleeve and disappeared. He reappeared midair above the Black Lands. His body flickered as he appeared outside Blackgate Fort. He used greater teleportation again, now midair above the violet sea. His divine sense shot out, sweeping the area to find where Xianxia had been killed and by whom. A few hours later, he found the location. As he floated there thoughtfully, his face grew grimmer. He waved his hand, causing Xianxia's life slip to transform into ash. The ash floated out to fill the area, beginning to glow. The softly glowing lights interlocked, transforming into a screen. On the screen was the black-robed youth. This chapter was sponsored by TF. Chapter 535, Will of a True Spirit. Patriarch Huyan looked at the screen formed from the Jade slip's dust, and his eyes shone brightly. The person depicted seemed familiar. He studied the face, and his aura grew dark and cold. It's him, the totemic sacred ancient of the Golden Crow tribe. He had a second demon spirit which I went after, only to be stopped by that strange woman. She left me no choice but to flee. He paused, then his eyes glittered as he suppressed his grief. He had noticed a few odd things. Before Kinger died, none of the life-saving treasures I gave him activated. That's the first strange thing. Furthermore, he died a day ago, yet something prevented me from detecting it until now. This image is clear, as if deliberately ensuring Kinger remembered this face. After a moment, Patriarch Huyan performed an incantation with his right hand. After it passed, he looked up and vanished. He soon reappeared where Meng Hao had destroyed Sir Wu and the others. After looking around carefully, his eyes glowed with killing intent. Wu Huai died here along with the others. They were killed by a great circle nascent soul cultivator. His battle prowess is beyond ordinary. Yet Kinger was killed in a different location. Patriarch Huyan had lived many years and was as crafty as a fox. His incredible intelligence had allowed him to achieve the tribal patriarch position. Based on the clues, he pieced together what happened. The great circle nascent soul cultivator had only killed the men here. Afterward, he had let Xianxia leave. Let me check the appearance of the person who killed Wu Hua and the others. Patriarch Huyan waved his sleeve, causing the air to ripple. Moments later, another screen appeared, showing Meng Hao killing Wu Hua. Though not incredibly clear, Patriarch Huyan recognized Meng Hao at a glance. He could also see differences between Meng Hao and the black-robed youth. So it wasn't the totemic sacred ancient of the Golden Crow clan who killed Kinger. Understanding this, Patriarch Huyan turned and sent his divine sense shooting out in all directions across the violet sea. Unfortunately, he couldn't sense Meng Hao at the sea bottom, nor could he detect the fighting a year's travel away in the western desert north region. After searching the immediate area, he gave up. Face grim, he flew back to the Black Lands. Although Meng Hao wasn't the actual perpetrator, the fact that he was framed shows they have some connection. If I can't track down the true killer, I'll find Meng Hao. I'll use soul search on him to discover the killer's identity. That solves the problem. As for Meng Hao, no need to look. I can force him to come out. Whether he survives soul search has nothing to do with me. He can only blame his bad fortune. Patriarch Huyan's eyes flickered with killing intent. His plan was simple: put pressure on the Golden Crow clan to force Meng Hao out. With a cold snort, Patriarch Huyan turned and shot toward the Black Lands. Meanwhile, booming roars filled the air in the western desert north region. Meng Hao's face rose from the water. His eyes glowed brightly as he stared fixedly at the corpse hovering in midair. The somewhat indistinct face completely emerged from the water. Beneath it, an enormous column of water surged toward the corpse, which couldn't avoid it. The water instantly enveloped the corpse. A boom rang out, then popping sounds came from its body. The corpse's eyes flickered brightly. It suddenly used an unknown technique, surrounding its body with 8 glittering magical symbols that resisted the violet sea's manifestation. After 4 or 5 breaths, the water cascaded back into the sea. Trembling, the corpse spit out life chi. Its body was falling apart. One leg transformed into ash. Its expression ferocious, it turned and shot off. Meng Hao's will was locked onto the corpse. If his true self were here, the corpse would have no hope of escaping. But his will was fused with the violet sea, and because he hadn't completed demonic transmigration, his battle prowess wasn't sufficient to restrain it. If you want to escape, pay the price. Meng Hao's face appeared on the water's surface again. Its eyes flickered, closed, then the face disappeared. At the same time, drops of violet seawater rose into the air. Meng Hao's voice rang out with killing intent, blood rising. Massive amounts of water shot up, covering the sky as it raced toward the corpse. The corpse's eyes widened and it immediately performed incantation gestures. Magical symbols poured from its body, swirling to meet the seawater. Incredible booming echoed out. The corpse fell back, spitting out life chi. The seawater dispersed and the corpse heaved a sigh. It was about to flee when suddenly, a gigantic fist shot from the sea. The previous mass of water had concealed it, so moving with incredible speed, the fist overwhelmed the corpse. Cracking sounds rang out and the corpse shrieked miserably. As it tumbled backward, its other leg exploded, forcing it to flee with only half its body. But as it fled, a huge wave appeared before it. The seawater congealed into an enormous head with Meng Hao's facial features, 3,000 meters wide. It rose from the depths to block the black bat corpse. Damn it! The corpse's heart was shaken, its scalp numb. It trembled as it turned and changed directions. It was thoroughly afraid of Meng Hao now. Back when it had planned to frame him, how could it imagine that even doubly prepared, it would be powerless to prevent Meng Hao from killing it? In fact, Meng Hao wasn't even here in person. By merely fusing his will into the violet sea, he pushed the black bat into this dire situation. Because of this, it felt incredible fear. Before it could employ divine abilities, a roaring sound came as the sea churned. Two gigantic arms of seawater rose from a boundless whirlpool. The arms moved with astonishing speed, clapping toward the black bat corpse. Each hand was several hundred meters long, kicking up wind and mighty waves. It was as if the entire area was sealed. The corpse was terror-stricken. Death's shadow loomed in its heart. In this grave crisis, the black bat corpse suddenly lifted its head and let out a mournful shriek. Bat usher, a true spirit. A black beam shot from its forehead. As soon as the beam appeared, everything trembled. The violet sea shook, and a ghost image of the entire world appeared. A power stemming from an otherworldly aura shot from the black bat corpse's forehead. Meanwhile, in the starry sky outside of planet South Heaven floated an enormous altar. It had circled South Heaven for innumerable years. This was planet South Heaven's most mysterious. Immortality bestowal dais. 1. Previous mentions of the immortality bestowal dais were in chapters 204, 319, 468, and 471. The vast collection of names carved into the dais suddenly flickered with light. An archaic aura was awakening. An ancient voice, filled with countless years, suddenly rang out. The will of a true spirit, an actualized body in South Heaven. So a true spirit, immortal murdering sword appeared in the world. Whether I am a false immortal, I can find out after receiving a stab from that sword. Meanwhile, back in the western desert, the black bat let out a miserable howl. The black beam from its forehead gradually expanded, enveloping its head and growing weaker. At the same time, the two seawater arms grew closer. Two gigantic hands slapped down onto the corpse. A huge boom rang out. An intense aftershock caused the hands and arms to collapse into pieces. The water cascaded back into the sea. Meng Hao's head, seeming to bleed from its orifices, also shattered. Simultaneously, the black bat corpse completely exploded except for its head. The head emitted a black glow as it shot off like a meteor. A shrill, hateful shriek echoed as it vanished. The instant it disappeared, the huge waves died down. Everything returned to normal. Meng Hao retracted his will from the violet sea. Back where his true self sat in meditation, a tremor ran through his body. His face was pale as he retreated from the seventh anima to the first. His eyes snapped open. Too bad I couldn't completely destroy that demonic thing. If my true self had been here, it would be different. That said, it was seriously injured. Recovery will take time. Next time we meet, I'll kill it. His eyes shone brightly, his jaw set with determination. What power did it use at the end? Strange. Lost in thought, he looked down at his bag of holding. One of his immortal murdering swords was filled with intense, trembling yearning. Perhaps I can get answers about these wooden swords from that black bat. Meng Hao shot up, about to emerge when his eyes widened. He sank back down and fused his will into the violet sea, concealing himself. At that moment, an ancient divine sense from far up in the heavens swept across the western desert. It seemed to look for something, but was obstructed by the violet sea. Because Meng Hao was merged with the violet sea, the divine sense passed by without detecting him. Instead, it moved in the direction the black bat had fled. The divine sense's power reminded Meng Hao of the 8 immortals he'd seen outside the bridge ruins years ago. What was it looking for? He thought, eyes glittering. He didn't leave but sat there for several more days. The divine sense appeared 3 more times. Clearly it was searching for something. However, after several days it vanished completely. Meng Hao waited even longer. When sure the divine sense was truly gone, he shot up out of the sea to stand on its surface. By then, he had a vague sense that the divine sense from the heavens had been looking for the immortal murdering sword. This chapter was sponsored by Frank Contreras. Chapter 536, Everything had changed. Meng Hao reached up to slap his bag of holding. Instantly, a head appeared in his hand, the head of the black bat's black-robed youth form. At this point it looked more like a bat than human. Its eyes were blank, but terror and despair were still visible. Anyone looking at it would have an indescribable reaction. Meng Hao had intentionally kept the head to resolve any disputes. The black bat had perpetrated Huyan Qing's death to frame him. Meng Hao didn't know if Patriarch Huyan would sort through the clues. Therefore, he kept the head to answer any questions. His body turned and flickered as he headed toward one of the western desert Violet Sea's 10 outpost cities he became aware of when merged with the sea. The nearest was the 7th outpost. All outposts are guarded by Black Land's cultivators. Only those backed by the Heavenly Court Alliance would have the resources to build such structures. I'll deliver the head there. People will send it to Patriarch Huyan. Meng Hao moved at top speed for 3 days. It was at that point that off in the distance he noticed a collection of what looked like airships floating above the water, roped together to form a crude outpost. Wooden structures covered them with over 1,000 cultivators. The hubbub of voices echoed across the waters, lively and chaotic. Several cultivators patrolled the perimeter with cold expressions, wearing black robes embroidered with butterflies flying within layers of clouds. The city guards. Cultivators engaged in trade here. The Black Lands powers planned to use these outposts as foundations to build hundreds more in coming years. Spell formations protected the outpost from divine sense. Meng Hao would have difficulty extending his sense inside without passing the first anima. Meng Hao neared the city at noontime. His approach instantly attracted the guards' attention, whose eyes went wide. His great circle nascent soul cultivation base put them on guard. They didn't block his way, allowing him entry unobstructed. As he entered, Meng Hao felt the spell formation's power sweep over him like divine sense. It covered his body, then paused, preparing to lock him in place. His expression remained unchanged. He had come for the Heavenly Court Alliance. If they looked for him specifically, it meant Patriarch Huyan had made advanced preparations in response to Huyan Qing's death. It would also mean he knew Meng Hao's identity. If nobody sought him out specifically, that would be worth considering. As Meng Hao arrived, 2 old men meditated in a luxurious airship among those making up the outpost. One wore a long red robe and was in the late nascent soul stage. The other wore a black gown with brightly colored totem tattoos on his face. His eyes were closed, and he emanated fluctuations nearing the Great Circle, but still some distance away. These 2 were the most powerful experts dispatched by the Heavenly Court Alliance. As soon as Meng Hao stepped into the outpost, a flickering, glowing screen appeared before them. They both opened their eyes and looked at the screen, seeing Meng Hao. On the screen, Meng Hao was surrounded by pulsing red lights from the outpost's spell formation, marking his location. Level red on the wanted list, this person. It's him. Patriarch Huyan personally put him on the list days ago. The 2 old men's eyes widened as they looked at each other, expressions intent. I remember the information. Notify Patriarch Huyan and acquire a magical item personally created by him. Capture him alive and Patriarch Huyan owes a personal debt. Anticipation burned in their eyes. They were thinking the same thing. Their faces filled with determination. As cultivators, they didn't fear danger. They feared lacking the courage to face it. Great rewards came only from great danger. A personal debt from a spirit-severing patriarch was worth the risk. Even if this cultivator had the strange Great Circle nascent soul base, they had other nascent soul cultivators plus the spell formation. It wasn't impossible. Activate the spell formation. All nascent soul cultivators move now. As nascent soul cultivators received the order, Meng Hao walked through the outpost's crowds. He looked around at the hustle and bustle, somewhat in a trance. He had just emerged from more than 100 years of secluded meditation. More than 100 years, he sighed softly. Memories flooded up like the tide. He recalled all the familiar faces he'd seen when fused with the Violet Sea. He thought about that teardrop. Filled with melancholy, he walked until nearing the outpost's far edge. He suddenly stopped and looked up. For the first time in more than 100 years, a tremor of anger ran through his body. Up ahead, hanging from racks, were more than 50 people. Many were gasping and on the verge of death. Half were actually dead. Their corpses hung there, exposed to the elements, surrounded by an aura of death. Their bodies bore scars and bruises from unimaginable torment. Those still alive wore vacant expressions, staring at something far away. None of them wailed or screamed. All maintained silence. One was an old woman. Her face was wrinkled, her body withered and covered with lash marks, her hair pure white. She was clearly in dire straits, yet looking closely, you could tell she had been beautiful when young. She gazed into the distance, her eyes filled with despair. Her heart clearly burned with an ever-present life force, raging with incredible hatred. A roaring sound filled Meng Hao's mind, and an intense, unprecedented coldness filled his face, unlike anything in more than 100 years. Even against the black bat, his fury was nothing compared to now. His body trembled as rage reached a pinnacle beyond control. Coldness radiated from him in pulses. Ice appeared on the wooden planks beneath his feet, and enormous waves rolled across the violet sea outside. Memories of the past filled his mind. "Senior, this is my older sister, Wu Ling. If you dare deceive my little brother, I won't rest until you're dead. Senior, I, Wu Ling, am willing to do anything for my younger brother. I can even be your—" The echoing voice in his mind seemed to transform into the old woman before him. She had once been just a young girl. Time had transformed her beauty into ancientness. Meng Hao barely recognized the old woman as Wu Ling. As for the other people hanging on the racks, Meng Hao recognized 4 of 5. They were members of the Golden Crow tribe. As Meng Hao looked at the members of the Golden Crow tribe, some of the surrounding cultivators watched on and sighed. They glanced at the hanging Golden Crow tribe members and talked about them in low voices. There are members of the Golden Crow Black Dragon clan hanging in all of the 10 outposts. They shouldn't have provoked the Heavenly Pursuit tribe and Patriarch Huyan. The real one to blame is their former totemic sacred ancient. He actually killed Patriarch Huyan's only son. That's simply too much of a provocation. All of the powers in the Black Lands were completely astonished when it happened. Heh heh. This collection of corpses and half-dead cultivators is all to force the old Golden Crow tribe totemic sacred ancient to show his face. If I remember correctly, his name is Meng Hao, right? I even heard that the Heavenly Pursuit tribe made an announcement that for every day Meng Hao doesn't show up, the Heavenly Pursuit tribe will kill 100 members of the Golden Crow tribe. The words stabbed into Meng Hao's heart like sharp knives. His heart felt as if it were being ripped open. His face was pale white, and the ice beneath his feet grew even thicker. His breath came in sharp stabs, and his eyes filled with veins of blood and a glow of red. He had never imagined that Patriarch Huyan would actually do something so heartless. Such deeds showed that he completely disregarded Meng Hao. This was the action of someone who felt himself to be in a position of vast superiority. Even though he knew that the crime had not been committed by Meng Hao, he still dragged him into the issue. Golden Crow tribe. The roaring of the violet sea grew even more intense. Quite a few of the cultivators were looking out in astonishment. There were also some who had noticed that something seemed a little bit off about Meng Hao. Among the group of 50 hanging on the racks, Wu Ling suddenly seemed to sense something. With great effort, she turned her head and looked at Meng Hao. The instant she saw him, an expression of shock filled her face. Slowly, a smile spread out. Meng Hao looked at her, his expression one of guilt but mostly of unsurpassable fury. As of this moment, the hushed conversations in the area had been interrupted by the churning of the violet sea. There were 2 sentences, however, which rung out into Meng Hao's ears. The Golden Crow Black Dragon clan actually split because of this matter. The Black Dragon tribe took the opportunity to once again stand on their own. The Golden Crow tribe barely managed to escape complete calamity. I heard that the Heavenly Pursuit tribe actually went to war with them, and that the war is still raging even as we speak. There is no clear winner right now, but recently, the Heavenly Pursuit tribe managed to capture about 500 members of the Golden Crow tribe. The Golden Crow tribe is still amazing, though. They are even more powerful than the Heavenly Pursuit tribe anticipated. The Heavenly Pursuit tribe has suffered quite a few casualties and finally mobilized their entire tribe to go to war. After hearing these words, the roaring violet sea outside the outpost suddenly exploded up. The coldness beneath Meng Hao's feet swept out in all directions, covering the entire outpost. Everything had changed. Meng Hao's body trembled, his mind filled with roaring. Intense fury exploded from his heart. Heavenly Pursuit tribe. Huyan Yunaming Ukraine. The violet sea roared and coldness spread in all directions, causing snowflake-like shapes to appear. Within the outpost, all cultivators shuddered. Those near Meng Hao trembled, looking at him. 9 nascent soul cultivators appeared, surrounding him. The 2 old experts in charge also appeared, floating in midair. The spell formation in the outpost activated completely. Roaring echoed as an enormous pressure enveloped Meng Hao. "Meng Hao," said the black-robed old man, "you ruthlessly slaughtered conclave members. You dare show your face here. We've come to take your head." Dozens of alliance members appeared and sat cross-legged, maintaining the spell formation. Meng Hao's eyes were bright red, his heart dripping with blood. He didn't kill Xianxia. He annihilated the black bat and brought its head to explain. He didn't believe Patriarch Huyan, with his insight, couldn't read the clues about Xianxia's death. Now it was clear Huyan had no intention of discussing rationally. "Patriarch Huyan, since you insist on dragging me in, consider Xianxia killed by Meng Hao." Setting his jaw, he slapped his bag to produce the black bat's head. Before, he'd viewed it as sufficient proof. Now he waved his hand, causing it to explode into ash. As the head turned to ash, killing intent in Meng Hao's eyes exploded. His aura became icy and shocking. "Heavenly Pursuit Tribe, as long as I live, I will wipe out your tribe and all your bloodlines." Meng Hao waved his sleeve, causing a powerful wind. It swept the dozens of Golden Crow tribe members off the racks and deposited them on the ground. The wind transformed into life force, nourishing Wu Ling and the others, restoring them. The dead tribe members were beyond help. 4 of 5 original Crow Divinity tribe members who had campaigned with Meng Hao were there. When they saw him, their bodies trembled, eyes filled with excitement and determination. They immediately knelt and kowtowed. In the loudest voices they could muster, they shouted, releasing all the pressure and hope in their hearts. "Greetings, sacred ancient." The other tribe members had been born in the past 100 years. They'd never seen Meng Hao, only his statue. Now, seeing their most senior member, they trembled. Faces pale, they dropped to their knees despite their weakened state. They too shouted, "Greetings, sacred ancient." Their voices echoed. Combined with the black-robed old man's words, the rest of the 7th outpost cultivators felt their hearts shaking. Eyes wide, they looked at Meng Hao. All had heard legends about him over the past 100 years. Every legend spoke of how Meng Hao single-handedly led his tribe out of the western desert north region. That really is Meng Hao, the totemic sacred ancient of the Golden Crow tribe, so that's him. As Meng Hao's aura billowed and cultivators recognized him, cries of alarm echoed. The 9 nascent soul cultivators and 2 old men's faces instantly changed. They clenched their teeth and attacked, shooting toward Meng Hao. At that moment, the spell formation's roaring power descended onto Meng Hao. Intense pressure weakened his cultivation base, limiting him to the mid-nascent soul stage. This was the full power of a formation constructed by a spirit-severing patriarch. Its power was extraordinary, the ultimate weapon of the great outpost. Even a great circle nascent soul would be severely weakened. This incredible power gave the 2 old men confidence to fight Meng Hao. At that moment, 11 nascent soul cultivators appeared near Meng Hao, filled with killing intent. Magical items, divine abilities, techniques, and totems unleashed in a blast of brilliant color. "You might be a totemic sacred ancient, but in our spell formation your fate is sealed. You're dead." Cold laughter rang out, interrupted by a shocking roar from Meng Hao. As the roar sounded, Meng Hao's voice came, filled with sinister coldness. "Third anima." As the attacks of the 11 nascent soul cultivators came, all their faces flickered with unprecedented terror. They had no choice but to instantly retreat. As they retreated, the divine abilities and magical items, light dissipated to reveal a man who looked like an immortal devil in the spell formation center. Meng Hao. His hair whipped about his head. In the 3rd anima, he was filled with the power of 4 great circle nascent soul cultivators. The previously invisible spell formation now appeared as a large net. The net glittered and emitted groaning sounds under strain. Popping rang out and fissures appeared. As they spread, Meng Hao's aura exploded fearsomely. All cultivators in the city were completely astonished. That was true especially of the 11. Their faces filled with disbelief, they gasped. They couldn't imagine a nascent soul fighting back so strongly. The formation would hold him only briefly. Their guesses were wrong. Even as their faces fell, the gigantic web suddenly collapsed and vanished. As the formation vanished, the outpost shook. Blood sprayed from the mouths of the 10 alliance members maintaining it. Their bodies exploded into hazes of blood. The formation couldn't hold against Meng Hao. In a blink, it was destroyed. Meng Hao strode forward, and waved his arm at the astonished 11. His arm's wave caused 4 times the prowess of a great circle nascent soul to explode out, fusing into raging wind. Blood-curdling screams echoed as 9 of the 11 couldn't avoid the crushing force. They couldn't dodge or resist. Wind cleaved flesh from bones, wiping away screaming nascent souls. 9 people, dead in an instant. The 2 old men tumbled backward, blood spraying from their mouths. What kind of cultivator is he? Not an ordinary great circle nascent soul base, halfway to spirit severing. Their physical bodies shredded into pieces, only their nascent souls remained. Letting out unprecedented shrieks, they fled at top speed, hearts filled with terror. The rest of the city's cultivators were filled with shock. They trembled, gazes filled with alarm and astonishment. He stood there, tall, hair flying, aura shocking. The berserk aura of an immortal demon rose, filled with killing intent. All his fury had transformed into the desire to kill, focused on one thing: wiping out the heavenly pursuit tribe. If you kill one of my people, I'll kill 100 of yours. If you kill 100 of mine, I will wipe out all of yours. I didn't want to fight, I wanted to resolve it. I came with the black bat's head for that purpose. But you place yourself on a pedestal, believing yourself invincible. You saw no reason to talk reasonably. Well then, I'll go to war. Meng Hao's body suddenly flew up. His eyes were red as he looked at the 2 fleeing old men. He didn't pursue them. Instead, he closed his eyes. His fury, desire to kill, and determination all transformed into an intense stimulation, like tidewaters pouring into the blood-colored mask in his bag, the blood mastiff asleep for nearly 200 years. It had slept until ready to awaken. The sensation had grown stronger since the heavenly tribulation. He felt it would awaken within months without stimulation. I need you, my mastiff. Awaken, blood mastiff. Together, we bring war to the heavenly pursuit tribe. Mastiff, awaken. The blood-colored mask inside his bag shuddered. The mastiff sensed Meng Hao's wrath, his desire to slaughter the tribe, his need. A tremor ran through the mastiff. The blood-colored eyes unopened for nearly 200 years suddenly, completely opened. The mastiff had awakened. As it opened its eyes, a boundless bloody glow erupted from Meng Hao. It filled the sky, rapidly covering the entire area. The 2 fleeing nascent souls were covered by the bloody light. Piercing screams echoed as they melted into nothingness. There is a phrase that goes like this: rewards come only with risk. However, there is a second line to the phrase: risk can also bring death. This chapter was sponsored by Anthony Guillemard. Chapter 538, Blood Mastiff Dao Protector. As the 2 nascent souls died, the red glow filling surrounding tens of thousands of meters transformed into a red mist. The mist churned and seethed, rising in shocking fashion. It changed from wide and flat to spherical. From a distance it looked like an enormous red eyeball. Anyone looking at it would feel extreme fear and shock, losing the ability to think clearly. The sight would cause the brain to fill with roaring, as if in the middle of a sea of blood, incapable of freeing oneself. All lives became the color of blood. The eye was incredibly realistic, filled with strange, demonic air. Red mist seethed as if blinking. It was frightening. In the center appeared a vortex spinning rapidly, transforming into a black hole. The black hole seemed capable of consuming anything. As it appeared, the air distorted, as if all light were being sucked in. Anyone seeing this was horrified. As the vortex spun, the black hole grew larger: 30 meters, 150 meters, 300 meters, 900 meters. In the end, it expanded to no less than 3,000 meters. A red eye 30,000 meters wide. A black hole 3,000 meters wide like a pupil. The vortex was the border. Everyone in the outpost was completely shocked. Cultivators trembled, expressions of utter astonishment. What is that? The nascent soul cultivators are all dead just like that. This Meng Hao, what cultivation base is this? What horrifying thing is he summoning? Cold sweat dripped from everyone's foreheads, their breath ragged. A profound sense of deadly crisis filled their hearts. They were filled with indescribable dread. It was like a nightmare they couldn't awaken from, forever branded in their souls. The surrounding violet sea covered with huge waves. From within the eye's black hole came a sudden roar. The roar sounded like a beast's howl. Everything shook, the air vibrated. The pupil in the red eye contracted, then rapidly expanded. Everything distorted, and people in the outpost felt their hearts shaken. A single roar, shocking as thunder. As it echoed, half the outpost people bled from eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, then passed out. They couldn't resist the roar, which contained cultivation base power that filled hearts and minds with shock. One sound rendered people unconscious. Cracking sounds came from the airships and wooden planks. The entire structure began to sink. The surrounding violet sea churned violently, roaring in response to the red eyes' howl. The remaining conscious cultivators had extraordinary bases. However, their faces were pale as they expended incredible effort to endure, their cultivation bases rotating as they stared upward. The instant the roar sounded, a gigantic paw stretched from the black hole. It had razor-sharp claws and luxuriant fur. The paw revealed an entire limb. Long hair flowed loosely with barbaric wild air. Claws seemed capable of ripping the air open. Another ear-splitting roar came from the black hole. A second paw appeared, then a gigantic head. The roar shook everything. The head was incredibly large. Red fur, ferocious fangs, and savage, barbaric aura exploding out. The head was clearly a dog. It waved back and forth, using all its power to emerge. It surged forward, emerging in full with a heaven-shaking roar. A beam of red light shot from the black hole violently. A vast red mist rose, then quickly disappeared. An enormous red figure stood there, straight and mighty. It was huge, covered with loose red fur. Bone spurs stuck out all over its body, more ferocious. Its gaze filled with bloodthirstiness, like a killin or bloodleon. The incredible fierceness was difficult to describe. This was the blood mastiff. As it appeared, an aura similar to spirit severing exploded from its body, emanating a domain feeling. Meng Hao knew this domain wasn't inherently the mastiff's, but branded by the blood immortal as part of its bloodline legacy. All blood spirits had such a brand. Because of the unprecedented fusion it experienced, it could completely manifest it. That was why it had slept nearly 200 years. Now it was fully awakened. The mastiff lifted its head and roared, shaking heaven and earth. The sky dimmed, everything trembled. The violet sea seethed. All remaining conscious cultivators passed out. Meng Hao looked at the mastiff, its enormous frame, fierce appearance, intrepid base. Yet to him, it was the same fluffy little puppy that had run at his side years ago. Still his partner, who had fought with him in the Blood Immortal Legacy Tournament, refusing to leave his side. The same mastiff who had stood guard over him atop a lonely mountain. No matter how exhausted or injured, even near death, it refused to leave. It risked its life to protect him. Exhausted and dying, all it wanted was for Meng Hao to pet its head. Meng Hao would never forget. He had watched as the mastiff, body broken and nearly destroyed, crawled to him and exerted all effort just to lick his hand. He thought about how it had saved him from the Li clan patriarch, using all power to fling him from the portal. Innumerable hands grabbed it, pulling it into the sludge. Before disappearing, it stuck its tongue out, as if for one final lick. How could Meng Hao possibly forget such things? "Blood mastiff," he said softly, looking at the gigantic, ferocious mastiff, seeing its shocking spurs and astonishing aura. His soft voice made the mastiff suddenly tremble. It turned and looked at Meng Hao in confusion. Then its expression turned gentle, happy. It slowly lowered its head, allowing him to rub its nose. It carefully extended its tongue to lick his hand. As Meng Hao rubbed its nose, it emitted a contented growl, just like when tiny. Meng Hao smiled and gently petted it. He thought about outside the rebirth cave when the sleeping mastiff had exerted all power to extend one paw. "Hey buddy, I haven't seen you for more than 100 years, he said softly. "Let's go wipe out the damned Heavenly Pursuit tribe." His killing intent suddenly boiled up. The mastiff's killing intent exploded to the sky. It roared like thunder. Meng Hao leaped up and flew to stand on the mastiff's head. He waved his hand, causing a massive wave to sweep up the Golden Crow tribe members and the bodies of their dead. Under his control, the Violet Sea's extermination power was restricted, ensuring the tribe members weren't harmed. He looked at Wu Ling and the others. "We're going together, blood debt, paid with blood." The mastiff roared and shot into the sky with Meng Hao. Wu Ling and the old-timers felt their blood growing hot, like the old days. They and other tribe members shot forward within the wave. They didn't head to the Black Lands. Instead, they went to the nearest outpost, the 9th. Under Patriarch Huyan's orders, the Heavenly Pursuit tribe had gone to war with the Golden Crow tribe to force Meng Hao out. In the first battle, they captured 500 prisoners. These captives were subjected to endless torture. Their cultivation bases ruined. They were sent to the 10 Western Desert Sea outposts to be hung. Hung in the open, exposed to the elements. The entire purpose was for Meng Hao to see it. Patriarch Huyan believed that once Meng Hao saw, he would be forced to appear. If not, his totems would weaken and he'd lose faith power. In actuality, Meng Hao no longer needed either. He had formed his nascent soul. He was both a totemic sacred ancient and was. Patriarch Huyan had severely miscalculated. Meng Hao would definitely appear. But the reason was sentiment and the Golden Crow tribe. Our slaughter begins with the 10 Violet Sea outposts. The mastiff roared and shot forward with spirit-severing speed. Meng Hao stood on its head, wind whipping his clothes. The killing intent only grew thicker, his determination to exterminate the Heavenly Pursuit tribe stronger. Boom! The second outpost soon became visible. After consulting with former Crow Divinity tribe members, he knew that though the 10th belonged to the Heavenly Court Alliance, the Heavenly Pursuit tribe mostly controlled it. The 2nd, 5th, and 9th were all the same. As for the 7th outpost Meng Hao had already destroyed, blame fell squarely on the 2 old men who tried to kill him. "I don't care what tribe they belong to," said Meng Hao, his eyes glowing coldly. "Anyone who dares to string up my Golden Crow tribe members deserves to die." There was no need for an order from Meng Hao. The blood mastiff's eyes glowed with red light as it neared the 2nd outpost. The sound of the roar created a sonic boom which sent mad, invisible power sweeping out. As it slammed into the outpost, a spell formation activated. However, it could only stand up to the roar for the space of a single breath before it collapsed into pieces. At the same time, the cultivators of the Heavenly Pursuit tribe within the outpost began to fly into the air, looks of shock on their faces. Before they could even react, a gale-force wind swept toward them. Each and every cultivator was instantly shredded into pieces, completely destroyed in body and soul. An off-kilter roar of despair rose up from within the outpost. It belonged to a cultivator who was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. His body was trembling, and he was surrounded by the reek of blood. To see so many people slaughtered in front of his eyes was like something from a nightmare. He knew that for a single roar to do that could only mean that he was facing spirit severing. "Your Excellency, who are you?" "We are cultivators from the Heavenly Pursuit tribe of the Heavenly Court Alliance. I am the totemic sacred ancient of the Golden Crow tribe, Meng Hao. I'm here to save my people and to eradicate the Heavenly Pursuit tribe." I just had to include this official rendition of the Mastiff again. Chapter 539, Slaughtering the Outposts. Meng Hao's voice was like a cold wind blasting in all directions. He pointed with his right index finger, causing massive violet chi to form into a blade. It shot toward the peak late nascent soul cultivator who had just spoken. The cultivator's face fell. His scalp went numb and he shot backward, both hands performing an incantation gesture. Vast magical items appeared as he fought back. When his defenses met Meng Hao's violet chi guillotine, they shattered. The guillotine sliced through the cultivator's body with a thunderous boom. Blood exploded into the air. The Heavenly Pursuit tribe cultivator trembled as he looked down to see his body cut in two. Even his nascent soul was destroyed. The corpse splashed into the violet sea and the mastiff roared. The Heavenly Pursuit tribe city guards began to bleed from their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. One by one, they dropped dead. Regarding the other cultivators in the city, Meng Hao didn't kill them. He strode down from off of the mastiff until he stood in front of the 50 Golden Crow tribe members strung up within the outpost. More than 20 of them were already dead. The rest slowly opened their listless, sallow eyes. When they saw Meng Hao in front of them, they gaped. Among the group were 2 old ones whose bodies began to tremble, their eyes filled with unprecedented emotion. "Exalted, exalted sacred ancient. Senior, it's you." These 2 old ones had accompanied Meng Hao during the Crow Divinity tribe's long migration and war campaign. They barely dared to believe what they were seeing. They had never imagined they might see their sacred ancient again. Meng Hao looked back at them and his expression softened. "It's me, I've returned." He waved his right hand, sweeping the Golden Crow tribe members into a wind that placed them on the ground. The wind, carrying life force, nourished them. Wu Ling and the others rushed over. Excited shouts rang from the Golden Crow tribe members. Many had never seen Meng Hao, only his statue, but as soon as they heard his words, indescribable emotions filled the hearts of all present. "Exalted sacred ancient, we offer our sincerest greetings." The sight suddenly brought back all the struggles of past years. Meng Hao looked at them with similar thoughts, but when he saw the corpses of the tribe members who had not survived, his heart filled with pain. His rage toward the heavenly pursuit tribe intensified. "I've returned to take you with me, to collect the blood debt." He turned and flew upward. The violet sea roared as it swept up the tribe members. Together, they moved onward. Shortly thereafter, the blood mastiff roared toward the first outpost. Massive paws rose to attack the spell formation. It shattered with a thunderous boom. The Heavenly Court Alliance cultivators maintaining it exploded, destroyed in body and spirit. As soon as Meng Hao arrived, the slaughter began. Cultivation base meant nothing. Core formation, nascent soul. Any member of the Heavenly Court Alliance in the 10 outposts who had dared to string up the Golden Crow tribe members was exterminated. The Wild Flame tribe controlled the first outpost. They watched the slaughter in shock. 2 middle-aged men with the highest cultivation bases recognized Meng Hao and his hatred for the Heavenly Pursuit tribe. Without hesitation, they fled. Before they could escape, 2 enormous arms rose from the violet sea. The men were seized and crushed. Blood-curdling screams rang out, then ceased. The wooden planks of the outpost ran with blood that flowed into the violet sea. After rescuing the Golden Crow tribe members, Meng Hao led them to the 3rd outpost, then the 4th and 5th. Everywhere he went, the slaughter rose to the sky. Yet no amount of killing could lessen Meng Hao's fury. Instead, he grew more berserk. Because each outpost held more Golden Crow tribe corpses and fewer survivors. At the 8th outpost of the group of 50, all had passed away. The corpses had begun to rot. The sight made Meng Hao's body tremble. He felt as if his entire person were on fire. Among the dead tribe members were 5 whose faces he recognized. They had died with their eyes open, their gazes holding enmity and desire for revenge that death could not erase. They would not close their eyes, nor would Meng Hao force them to. He would allow these dead Golden Crow tribe members to watch as the Heavenly Pursuit tribe was eradicated. Only then could they close their eyes in death and be content. Meng Hao flicked his sleeve and then headed toward the 9th outpost. By now, several days had passed. Meng Hao was sure that certain parties had noticed his appearance. If his suppositions were correct, Patriarch Huyan would arrive soon. And that was exactly what Meng Hao was waiting for. Patriarch Huyan was of the spirit-severing stage, but so what? With the Mastiff here and Meng Hao being the master of the Violet Sea, he could battle with the spirit-severing stage. Not fighting was something he couldn't comprehend. Not fighting would leave his heart unsettled. Not fighting was something he refused to do. You want to drag me into the matter? Well, since there is no way to avoid a fight, then all of my explanations are useless. Fine then, let's fight. Patriarch Huyan, I am in the Violet Sea waiting for you. To Meng Hao, the Violet Sea was the most advantageous location for battle. That was why he had exterminated the Heavenly Court Alliance members in the outposts. He wanted the battle fought in the Violet Sea, not the Black Lands. You forced me to fight, Patriarch Huyan. Well then, I will force you to fight on my home ground. Though his fury boiled to the heavens, Meng Hao was calm. He knew his current actions would quickly be relayed to Patriarch Huyan, who would personally come. The Devil's Spear appeared in Meng Hao's hand. He hurled it, causing a towering mist as it shot toward the 9th outpost. By this point, Meng Hao had possessed the Devil's Spear for more than 100 years. Though he had been in secluded meditation most of that time, the spear had continued to fade. Yet after 100 years, it had not faded away completely. The power of the spear slammed into the spell formation, inside of which were the Heavenly Court Alliance cultivators of the 9th outpost, all ready to do battle. Somehow the Heavenly Court Alliance had gathered non-alliance cultivators inside the formation, staring at Meng Hao with intense killing intent and greed in their eyes. 700 people in total, all eager to slay Meng Hao. Obviously, they had been promised an enticing reward by the Heavenly Court Alliance if Meng Hao were killed. As the Devil's Spear neared, an arrogant voice rang out from within the outpost. Pour full power into the spell formation. Patriarch Huyan knows that this villain is here and is on his way. Bang! The explosion interrupted the voice. The spell formation shook violently as vast black mist spread out, eroding it. Countless vicious faces were consuming everything. In mere breaths, the spell formation grew weak from the Devil's Spear's corrosion. The faces, filled with excitement and determination, burst through and shot toward the 700 cultivators. Miserable screams rang out. The area the Devil's Spear had struck corroded away, leaving a huge hole. The black mist congealed into a face, exactly the same face from the devil construct of years ago. Filled with greedy bloodlust, it transformed into a devilish mist that spread across the entire 9th outpost. The only safe place was where the Golden Crow tribe members were. Meng Hao floated in midair. This was the first time he had completely wiped out an entire outpost's population. These cultivators had made their own choice to deliver themselves to death. The Black Devil's spear mist roiled and churned. Blood-curdling screams rang out for a few moments. Suddenly, 7 or 8 figures shot out. Meng Hao waved his hand, causing them to scream before exploding into pieces. The violet sea surged with huge waves that submerged the outpost. The black mist shrank to surround the Golden Crow tribe members and bring them to Meng Hao. Only 8 tribe members were still alive. As Meng Hao treated their injuries, his killing intent grew more intense. He turned and returned to stand on the mastiff's head. A great wave rose in the violet sea to take the Golden Crow tribe members toward the last outpost. Almost as Meng Hao headed off, a black beam appeared near the Black Lands. It moved with speed far exceeding the nascent soul stage, teleporting at greater intervals. Within the black beam was a man wearing a black robe. This was nothing more than Patriarch Huyan's clone. His face was grim and he did not speak. His body flickered as he teleported, growing ever nearer to the 10th outpost. "Kinger," he murmured, "today, Father will achieve only half of the vengeance you deserve. Soon, I will find the person who killed you, and that person will die the most cruel death imaginable. Kinger, no one in the world is qualified to kill you. Only me, only I have that right." His eyes were filled with kindness, yet the kindness was bizarre. Anyone who saw it would feel cold, their hair standing on end in terror. This chapter was sponsored by Brett Flowers, L.B., De Leon Felix, Brandilly Dennis, Alessio Bastardi, Ricardas Barkoskas, Sean Baines, Jonathan Tanomiharja, Von Neumann, Mitchell Leon, and Shadow Dawn. Chapter 540, Patriarch Huyan. The 10th outpost was waiting, its spell formation fully activated to meet this deadly foe. It was night, and the spell formation's light was not soft, but resplendent. It shone on the sea with brilliant colors. The light emanated a mighty aura, making clear that this formation was far more powerful than the others. In fact, there was no way to compare them. The 10th outpost's spell formation seemed so powerful it would make it very difficult for Meng Hao to break through. In the middle of the spell formation, the cultivators waited vigilantly, their chi settled and their minds calm. 16 nascent soul cultivators sat cross-legged, meditating. 3 were at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, each positioned in a different direction to share the spell formation's recoil. More cultivators maintained the spell formation's operation. The entire outpost was silent. They knew of the destruction of the other 9 outposts and the slaughter Meng Hao had carried out. They knew they were about to face something completely terrifying. Yet they weren't afraid. They knew Patriarch Huyan was coming and had resolved not to leave the spell formation. They had considerable trust in its strength and believed that as long as they stayed together, Meng Hao couldn't break through quickly. As long as they held out until Patriarch Huyan arrived, everything would return to normal. Meng Hao would assuredly be killed. Everyone in the 10th outpost felt the same way. Within the spell formation was a tall rack, on which hung the corpses of 50 Golden Crow tribe members. All were dead. They had died days before. Notably, one dead tribe member had no body, only the head of an old man whose cultivation base had been destroyed before his death, rendering him mortal. Also within the formation were 2 enormous war chariots shaped like crossbows. They glowed black and had a fierce aura. Cultivators were mounted on them, ready to use them at any moment. The deepest hour of night approached. The sky was pitch black. Only the gentle rise and fall of the waves could be heard. All of a sudden, a beam of light appeared in the sky, instantly catching everyone's attention. "He's here. This Meng Hao has really got some guts. However, it doesn't matter that he dares to attack us. He'll never be able to break through the spell formation." Many looked up with cold smiles, but as they stared at the red glow, the violet sea around the 10th outpost suddenly surged into a huge whirlpool. It spun faster and faster, making everyone's faces pale. The water seethed and the airships bobbed up and down. Booming filled the air. The beam of light neared, and the mastiff's enormous frame became visible. Meng Hao stood on its head, wearing a long green robe, his face grim and dark. An astonishing killing aura rose around him. Meng Hao's eyes swept across the outpost and stopped. His pupils constricted as he stared at the Golden Crow tribe corpses hanging from the rack, and the head. When he saw it, his heart filled with pain. It was Gula. "Patriarch Huyan," he murmured. "Heavenly Pursuit Tribe." The killing aura in his eyes changed, becoming ruthlessly dense. He looked down at the 10th outpost and pointed his finger. The violet sea roared as the whirlpool surrounding the outpost rose into the air. A massive pillar of seawater, 3,000 meters in area, enveloped the outpost. Roaring filled the air like a geyser erupting. The spell formation shattered against such power. The airships shattered into pieces. Cultivators screamed miserably, unable to control their bodies as they were swept into the seawater. As soon as they touched it, the death will collided with their life forces, causing extermination to erupt. In the blink of an eye, before anyone could use a divine ability, their bodies burst. They could not fight back, block, or evade. All their power had been focused on defending against attacks from above. Their plans were based on reports of Meng Hao's cultivation base and the mastiff's fearsomeness. They hadn't prepared for an explosive attack by the Violet Sea. How could they have imagined that someone could control the western desert's apocalyptic Violet Sea? It was impossible to believe someone could even enter the Violet Sea. Therefore, the spell formation had a fatal flaw. It had no bottom. Roaring filled the air as the outpost was scattered and destroyed. All preparations were crushed like dry weeds under the apocalyptic Violet Sea's power. The two war chariots were crushed before they could attack. People died without Meng Hao attacking. A mere thought caused the Violet Sea to surge, burying the outpost. This was his home ground. The western desert Violet Sea. The corpses sank and wreckage floated. No one in the outpost could exist within the Violet Sea's exterminating power. All were dead. Death is oftentimes quite simple. Life is oftentimes quite fragile. People who have never witnessed death might not understand these two statements. Sometimes, only after witnessing many deaths can one truly understand life. Meng Hao hovered in midair, looking down at the death below. He said nothing. The waters that had shot up transformed into a violet rain that fell onto the wreckage. Meng Hao slowly lifted his head to gaze into the distant sky. In the gigantic wave, there were more than 100 living Golden Crow tribe members. The rest were corpses. They lived only because Meng Hao had saved them. Had only a few more days passed, all would be dead. This death toll was trivial compared to the migration's losses, yet these deaths were avoidable. Furthermore, the matter had nothing to do with the Golden Crow tribe. Even Meng Hao was a victim. By now, he was certain that Patriarch Huyan knew the truth. He stood silently atop the mastiff, glancing around coldly. He waited for Patriarch Huyan to arrive. Before long, a black beam appeared in the sky, even blacker than the night. As it approached, it kicked up a shocking windstorm. Within it was a middle-aged man in a black robe, hands clasped behind his back as he strode through the air. His long hair whipped in the wind, his eyes piercingly bright. The aura he emitted made him seem fused with heaven and earth, containing its own law of nature. In the blink of an eye, he became translucent. A domain which exterminated emotion began to interfere with heaven and earth, enveloping everything. Around Meng Hao, black snowflakes began to flutter down. This was Patriarch Huyan. "Meng Hao," he said coldly, striding through the air. Cracking sounds rang from the Violet Sea as layers of ice formed. The surrounding air began to freeze as a black snowstorm surrounded Patriarch Huyan. A sound rang out like tens of thousands of voices calling Meng Hao's name. A power Meng Hao had never encountered descended. It was like a natural law within the area, appearing in his mind and transforming into a noise that exceeded thunder and lightning. It was as if calling to deceased souls, trying to gather the broken spirits. Actually, Patriarch Huyan's divine ability could better be described as a shocking call of broken souls. The coldness seemed filled with emotionlessness. What I'm translating as emotionless could also be translated as merciless, ruthless, apathetic, and cold. The voices' coldness contained a heavenly might based on the lack of emotion. The sounds fused, transforming into a rule of law that could not be ignored. This was the spirit-severing stage. A simple sound was enough to exterminate all nascent soul cultivators. Even someone of the great circle of the nascent soul stage was puny to the extreme in front of a spirit-severing cultivator. Boom! Meng Hao's mind trembled, his soul threatening to shatter out of his body. The flame of his life flickered, nearly snuffed out. Yet he was not an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. He had a perfect nascent soul with divine sense spanning 29,999 meters. His 7 nascent souls sat cross-legged in his dantian, eyes closed like sleeping. Suddenly, all opened. In that instant, his divine sense's power exploded within him, fighting back against the power of law. Roaring filled the air as Meng Hao retreated. He lifted his head, his eyes bright and clear. "So you're Patriarch Huyan," he said slowly. Meng Hao's eyes shone fiercely. He had seen this man before, the one who tried to kill him when he left the Black Lands. As he spoke, Meng Hao's expression radiated killing intent. He remembered Jixiang saying this man was merely a clone. Patriarch Huyan's eyes glittered strangely that Meng Hao could recover from his power of law. He continued forward, never stopping as he approached. Such action reflected his personality and fighting style. Every time he fought, he pushed down with intense pressure. As he neared Meng Hao, his aura grew stronger, fusing with the surroundings, becoming inseparable. The might of spirit severing was impossible to overlook. The surroundings were changing only because of him. Patriarch Huyan didn't look at the wreckage floating on the sea's surface, unconcerned. "Answer me, who killed my only son Huyan Qing?" He suddenly stopped in midair. His voice echoed, his expression calm and cool. He glanced at Meng Hao, then the mastiff, his pupils constricted. Chapter 541, Battle. After hearing Patriarch Huyan's words, Meng Hao's expression remained unchanged. That was his personality. The more he wanted to kill, the less he spoke. From Patriarch Huyan's words, it was obvious he understood what had happened. "What's the point in more talk?" said Meng Hao coolly. "You want to fight? Let's fight." He lifted his right hand and snatched. Instantly, the Black Devil's spear appeared. He hurled it forward with a boom as it shot at incredible speed. As it screamed through the air, roaring erupted from the spear as boundless black mist appeared. Within it were innumerable vicious faces, their bloodthirsty smiles filled with greed. The mist formed indistinctly into an enormous head, the devil construct. The devil spear unleashed the explosive power of demon weapon Lonlatum's devil construct, shooting through the air with a droning sound. The spear was unrelated to Meng Hao's cultivation base. Its mightiness was self-contained. However, it was only a strand of devil construct, unable to compare to the true demon weapon Lonlatum. Yet when the devil's spear exploded, it was powerful enough to slay any nascent soul cultivator. As for spirit severing, Meng Hao wasn't certain. Therefore, he had decided to test it. "Area," said Patriarch Huyan, voice calm, expression unchanging. He lifted his right hand and gestured. Instantly, everything within 300 meters became his area world. This divine ability was barely different from natural law, a magical ability of the spirit-severing stage. The area was only 300 meters, his own private world. Within it, Patriarch Huyan had ultimate power. No divine abilities or techniques could break the area to harm him. This is what sets spirit severing above nascent soul. Divine abilities become natural laws. The 300-meter area seemed unremarkable, yet Meng Hao sensed that Patriarch Huyan had turned the surrounding space into his own world. A boom sounded. As soon as the devil's spear entered the region, it was defeated and transformed into black mist. The mist spread as if trying to infect the area, though Meng Hao sensed it fighting back against the world. Such formidableness, such use of natural law, was the first time Meng Hao experienced spirit severing's power. Patriarch Reliance had fled without fighting. At Holy Snow City, he had been fused with the Agarwood legacy. Outside Blackgate Fort, Jixiang had stepped in. This was the first time Meng Hao truly faced a spirit-severing expert. "Childish," said Patriarch Huyan, moving forward as pressure intensified. He didn't attack, he simply advanced. The 300-meter space moved with him. The devil's spear's mist was suppressed by the world around it. Popping sounds rang from inside as it shrank inward. Countless faces sucked inward, transforming into the devil construct's head. Its face held unprecedented seriousness. Under the suppressive pressure, it howled. Then it backed up, dissipating, as if on the verge of destruction. As Patriarch Huyan neared it, the devil construct exploded into action. Demonic chi shot toward it from all directions, transforming into ripples that fought the area world and let the devil construct escape. It fled, surrounded by roaring sounds, returning to Meng Hao. The black mist was now faint, nearly dissipating. Meng Hao collected it grimly. At this point, Patriarch Huyan was 300 meters away. Meng Hao backed up. Even at 300 meters, he sensed a spirit-severing expert's fearsomeness. "There's no need to feel resentment," Patriarch Huyan said calmly, looking at Meng Hao. "I understand how karma works. If you want to blame something, blame your own bad fortune." At this moment, the mastiff lifted its head and howled, causing everything to shake. Suddenly, power exploded, revealing its spirit-severing aura. As the aura appeared, Patriarch Huyan's pupils constricted. He looked at the mastiff seriously. At the same time, bloody glow shone from the Mastiff's eyes. It shot forward, entering Patriarch Huyan's 300-meter area. The area began to distort. It roared again, causing red-colored ripples to emanate from its body. They spread in all directions, contacting Patriarch Huyan's area. Patriarch Huyan's face went pale, as if blood suddenly flowed in reverse through his body. A fierce glow shone from his eyes. He had been moving forward, but now he stopped. He looked at the Mastiff closely and slowly said, "One moment of contact cost me 10% of my essence blood. This immortal beast is impressive. It clearly gained enlightenment from a spirit-severing legacy, but isn't spirit-severing itself. Still, such a will of undeath is truly rare." A tremor ran through the Mastiff as it was pushed back several paces. It let out a threatening growl while staring fixedly at Patriarch Huyan. The Blood Mastiff's domain was, as Patriarch Huyan had said, acquired via legacy, not personal enlightenment. Yet the Blood Immortal's legacy domain was no trivial matter. It was a will of undeath. The first severing had been a severing of blood, all the blood in the body severed. Blood represents life, therefore severing blood is equivalent to severing life. Life without death is undeath. This undeath domain could affect natural laws and create a world in which blood was prohibited. As the invisible struggle between the Blood Mastiff and Patriarch Huyan unfolded, Meng Hao's eyes glittered. Having tested Patriarch Huyan's strength, he could now form an image in his mind, clarifying the differences between himself and spirit severing. "I can fight it." He strode forward 2 paces. Roaring filled his body as he entered the second anima. The power of 2 great circle nascent souls exploded within him. His aura radiated like a whirlwind. His body grew taller and more intrepid. He took a 3rd step and instantly entered the 3rd anima of his 7 anima's soul transformations. 3 nascent souls gave him battle prowess equivalent to 4 great circle nascent souls. He grew taller and more powerful. "Even if you do possess some temporary power-up," said Patriarch Huyan coolly, "it is still far too much of yourself." He waved his sleeve, causing the 300-meter area to distort in ripples toward the Mastiff. The Mastiff roared as bloody light exploded from its body. It manifested an area world to fight back, though only about 250 meters. Spirit-severing battles differed from nascent soul battles. All spirit-severing cultivators had area worlds. Without breaking the area, the spirit-severing cultivator couldn't be harmed. Between the Mastiff and Patriarch Huyan, the area worlds opposed each other. Meng Hao's wind whipped about, his aura shooting up. He took a 4th step. 4 nascent souls combined. Popping sounds rang out in waves as Meng Hao's body grew taller and stronger. The scholar's aura was gone, replaced by an immortal devil's evil sense. 8 full circle nascent souls, battle prowess exploded. Such prowess and energy caused the wind to scream into a vortex swirling around Meng Hao. His clothes danced, his eyes shone with blinding light. Even Patriarch Huyan was visibly affected by such power. Patriarch Huyan had never encountered a great circle nascent soul cultivator as powerful or shocking as Meng Hao. Such fearsome strength would let him sweep the entire nascent soul stage. "You have an excellent temporary power-up," Patriarch Huyan said thoughtfully, eyes narrowing. Meng Hao took a 5th step, eyes fixed on Patriarch Huyan. He had entered Patriarch Huyan's 300-meter area. The instant he entered, incredible pressure weighed down on him from the area world. It felt like a mountain had been dropped onto his body to crush it to a pulp. As the pressure weighed down, Meng Hao's body roared as 5 colors united and he entered the 5th anima. The 5th anima gave him 16 times the battle prowess of a great circle nascent soul. Such explosive power fought back against the area's enormous pressure, causing distortions to ripple out. The sight made Patriarch Huyan feel thorough astonishment. The 300-meter area made any nascent soul cultivator's head bow, even great circle ones. Patriarch Huyan only needed to think, and that person would be crushed. Meng Hao, however, was using an astonishing technique to make himself terrifyingly powerful and fight back against the area. "I can't let him live," thought Patriarch Huyan. "He's only at the great circle of nascent soul and already has such terrifying power. If he ever severs his spirit..." He seemed to be taking the situation seriously for the first time. His killing intent grew, and he let out a cold harumph. He immediately took a portion of the 300-meter area resisting the Blood Mastiff and sent it crushing down onto Meng Hao. "You'll be reaching your limit any second now, won't you? In front of spirit severing, it doesn't matter how powerful your nascent soul, you're nothing but an insect." As Patriarch Huyan sent area pressure bearing down onto Meng Hao, Meng Hao set his jaw. A tremor ran through his body, his eyes shining with cold, fierce light. Sixth anima. Boom. 6 colors combined. Meng Hao grew taller, looking just like an immortal devil. An indescribable aura of valiance skyrocketed. He now possessed a cultivation base equivalent to 32 great circle nascent souls. This was a level of nascent soul power never seen before in the cultivation world. This chapter was sponsored by David Tang, Devin Silva, Von Neumann, and Anonymous. Chapter 542, Clever Mastiff. Facing the pressure from the 300-meter area, Meng Hao focused his sixth anima's power into his hands and made a ripping motion. The air distorted with a snapping sound, as if a shapeless obstacle had been torn. Meng Hao's body relaxed as the invisible pressure was removed. "Mastiff," said Meng Hao, charging forward. The Mastiff howled, its 250-meter area focusing around Meng Hao as he shot toward Patriarch Huyan. For the second time, Patriarch Huyan's expression changed because of Meng Hao. He gave a cold harumph. As Meng Hao and the Mastiff neared, he lifted his right hand and flicked his sleeve. No magical item or divine ability appeared. The casual flick, however, exploded with incredible power for a spirit-severing patriarch. The area shrunk to 150 meters, doubling in intensity. It pushed down with pressure that suppressed all divine abilities. Roaring filled the air as it slammed into Meng Hao and the Mastiff. Booming sounds rose into the sky. Meng Hao clenched his right hand into a fist and punched down. Roaring filled his body as if his fist could cause mountains to tremble. Blood oozed from the corners of his mouth, but his eyes glittered coldly. This battle gave him much better understanding of spirit severing. The Mastiff's body trembled as it exploded with increased ferocity. Bloody light pierced into the 150-meter area. It surrounded Meng Hao, forming mighty power that let him push forward with irresistible force. Meng Hao shot directly toward Patriarch Huyan, stabbing through the 150-meter area until he made contact. Bam! Blood flowed from Patriarch Huyan's mouth, and he retreated several paces. His eyes, bright glow, grew more intense. His area suddenly shrunk under the attack's power, rebounding to 75 meters before counterbalancing the attacks from Meng Hao and the Mastiff. This immortal beast is incredibly devious. It was concealing its true power. Patriarch Huyan's eyes glittered with killing intent. His expression became tranquil again, though he was shaken inwardly. A nascent soul cultivator who could shake his spirit-severing area made his desire to kill Meng Hao even stronger. Before Meng Hao could back up, Patriarch Huyan advanced with his 75-meter area. "After I kill you, I'll skin this immortal beast and debone it," he said calmly. His words held obvious killing intent. The 75-meter area was a restricted zone. Entering it meant immediate injury. As it moved, the air vibrated. Seeing it approaching, the Mastiff howled with fierce eyes. It had grown up with Meng Hao and inherited his talent for conning people. Its area shrank and shot forward. Its paws lifted as it charged viciously. Its claws were incredibly sharp, slashing toward Patriarch Huyan's area. Booms filled the air and Patriarch Huyan's body shook. He suddenly stopped. At the same time, the blood Mastiff trembled and coughed up a mouthful of life chi. Without fear of death, it charged again. This time it didn't use claws or teeth. Instead, it butted viciously with its head. This was Meng Hao's Mastiff, and even if it died, it would protect him and kill his enemies. Bang! More blood oozed from Patriarch Huyan's mouth and he was forced backward. He looked at the fierce, increasingly vicious Mastiff, his killing intent soaring to the heavens. He felt unprecedented jealousy regarding Meng Hao. Damnable immortal beast, it was hiding even more power. Immortal beasts as treacherous as this are hard to find. As Patriarch Huyan defended himself, Meng Hao's cold voice rang out. "Seventh anima." Boom! Meng Hao's body grew rapidly. A violent, raging tempest sprang up around him. The sky dimmed and everything shook. His fleshly body grew powerfully to an astonishing degree. Now he had far more than 32 great circle nascent souls. Now he had 64. A nascent soul cultivator like this was unparalleled in history, most likely never to be repeated. Meng Hao's hair whipped about. He was incredibly tall, like an immortal demon. His fleshly strength, majestic battle prowess, and incredible aura could shake heaven and earth. At this moment, he was the most powerful nascent soul cultivator, someone who could fight spirit-severing stage. He was over half a meter taller, shoulders broad, posture ramrod straight. He looked like a devil divinity, emanating an aura that made anyone pant. His cold, sharp eyes made everything in the area seem to freeze. Impossible. Patriarch Huyan's face fell. Meng Hao was emanating unprecedented pressure, something Patriarch Huyan would only expect from someone of his own stage. As Patriarch Huyan's 75-meter area neared Meng Hao, he shot forward unhesitatingly. Relying only on his fleshly body's strength, he charged directly into the area. Bang! Distorted ripples spread through it. It shrank to 30 meters. Meng Hao, spitting image of a devil divinity, appeared 30 meters from the shocked Patriarch Huyan. He clenched his fist and punched. This was not a divine ability or magical technique. No magical item involved. This was pure terrifying power of his fleshly body. 64 great circle nascent souls, battle prowess, fused together. It formed a shocking punch never before seen in the nascent soul stage of the cultivation world. BOMMM. Meng Hao's punch shattered the 30-meter area, breaking it into countless pieces that exploded outward. A spirit-severing area shattered. In the same moment, the mastiff howled and shot forward like lightning. As the area collapsed, it charged Patriarch Huyan, its sharp, awe-inspiring fangs savagely biting down. Bam! Patriarch Huyan waved both hands forward to block. His body shook violently, and he tumbled backward, his face filling with utter disbelief and shock. He could never have imagined his spirit-severing area would be shattered by a nascent soul cultivator. Even as it happened, he could scarcely believe it. His desire to kill Meng Hao had reached a pinnacle. Deep in his heart, he had begun to regret provoking Meng Hao. A powerful expert like this, a nascent soul cultivator who could battle spirit-severing, was like a nightmare to any cultivator. If not killed, he would likely cause the calamitous extermination of an entire tribe. "You will die this day," howled Patriarch Huyan, eyes narrowing as he looked at Meng Hao behind the mastiff. Meng Hao's intrepid fleshly body made him pause momentarily as jealousy rose within him. He suddenly performed an incantation gesture with his right hand, causing an enormous wheel to appear in front of him. At that moment, Meng Hao shot forward with another punch. In the blink of an eye, he was closing in on Patriarch Huyan. Wheel of Time, Universal Death, First Rotation, Time Destruction. He performed a final incantation and pushed his hand forward. The illusory image became clear. It was a black chariot wheel. It emanated the archaic feeling of time, branded with countless magical symbols. The symbols flickered with light as the wheel began to rotate. Meng Hao's fist descended, just about to slam into the wheel when an intense feeling filled his mind. The mastiff sensed it faster. It suddenly grabbed him with its mouth and shot backward in retreat. At the same time, boundless time power exploded from the wheel. This power was different than Meng Hao's. It was reversal power. Astonished, Meng Hao saw that even as he retreated, the area he had shattered was being restored. After retreating more than 60 meters, his seventh anima began to dissolve. Patriarch Huyan smiled coldly, eyes shining with disdain. He suddenly vanished, then reappeared behind Meng Hao. He reached out and gestured with his finger. The mastiff howled, red light expanding as it shot forward to block the attack. Patriarch Huyan frowned and cursed inwardly as he forced the attack through. Boom sounded as the red light shattered. Ignoring the incoming blood mastiff, Patriarch Huyan stabbed his finger toward Meng Hao's back. The attack landed with a roar, but it hit layers of eyeless larva silk. The silk prevented 90% of the blow from hitting Meng Hao. The remaining 10% slammed into him, causing blood to spray from his mouth. As he tumbled forward, Patriarch Huyan was about to pursue when the mastiff bit down. Patriarch Huyan trembled violently, blood spraying from his mouth. He was forced backward several paces, abandoning pursuit. "Tough little bastard," said Patriarch Huyan through gritted teeth. He could only watch as Meng Hao sped away, held up by the frenzied crimson mastiff. Unable to pursue, he let out a cold harumph. The power of time would still envelop Meng Hao, and there was nothing he could do to escape it. "Since that's the case," said Patriarch Huyan, performing an incantation gesture, "I'll just slaughter this little animal of yours." Booming filled the air and the mastiff howled as its area shattered. But the red glow from its body transformed into countless red spikes that shot toward Patriarch Huyan. The battle between them exploded out. At the same time, Patriarch Huyan's eyes flickered as he sought an opportunity to kill Meng Hao. All of this happened in the time it takes a spark to fly off flint. The blood that had sprayed from Meng Hao's mouth as he tumbled suddenly seemed as if it was about to return to his mouth. Chapter 543, Seizing Treasures. This power of time gave Meng Hao an intense sense of grave crisis. As the blood moved backward toward him, violet light suddenly flickered in his eyes. the East Pill Division catalysis technique, the time magic from Han Bei of the Black Civ sect, and the technique he had learned from the Jade page, all combined into a branding mark that Meng Hao placed onto the mouthful of blood. This was also a power of time. However, instead of causing time to flow backward, it did the opposite. The power exploded out, fighting back at the power from the Wheel of Time. Roaring rose up into the air. At the same time, Patriarch Huyan was incapable of avoiding the Mastiff, which teleported in to once again wound him with its slashing claws. Meng Hao's body was currently recovering. He transformed into green smoke and a black moon, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Patriarch Huyan made a slight "ee" sound. By this point, Meng Hao had already reappeared in midair, blood seeping out of the corners of his mouth. There was no time to wipe it away. He looked over at Patriarch Huyan, his eyes glittered with killing intent. "Blood Mastiff," bellowed Meng Hao. He shot up into the air, performing an incantation and then waving his arm. Instantly, an enormous face appeared. Simultaneously, the Mastiff began to glow with a bright, bloody light that merged into the blood-colored face. Combining the blood immortal divine ability with the power of the blood mastiff resulted in a true blood immortal magic. Before the mastiff had awakened, what Meng Hao could utilize lacked true magic. Now, however, he was using true magic, a true divine ability. The fact that Meng Hao was able to evade the Wheel of Time left Patriarch Huyan amazed yet again. That was especially so because the method he had used to escape the time reversal technique was also time. "Your name is Meng. It's Han," said Patriarch Huyan. This caused Meng Hao's pupils to constrict and gave birth to a new idea. He did not respond to the words. Instead, he caused the battle prowess of 64 nascent souls to explode out. Instantly, the blood-colored face transformed into 64 separate faces, which transformed into ghost images that then superimposed over each other. Then they combined and shot toward Patriarch Huyan. As the blood-colored faces whizzed forward through the air, Meng Hao slapped his bag of holding to produce his wooden time swords. He did not employ their power of time, but rather treated them as ordinary flying swords. They stabbed through the blood-colored face and then shot toward Patriarch Huyan. Patriarch Huyan frowned. He had a sneaky suspicion about what was going on. His right hand lifted up as he flashed an incantation gesture, then pointed toward the Wheel of Time. Instantly, the ancient, black chariot wheel began to spin again. The power of time then exploded out. A massive roaring sound could be heard. Ripples caused the violet sea down below to seethe. Meng Hao's blood immortal divine ability face suddenly withered. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into gray ash. It was at this point that the time sword formation appeared. The formation trembled as it shot out. For some reason, the formation seemed somewhat different than it had in the past. It was as if encountering this new power of time had somehow changed the time sword formation. At the same time, Patriarch Huyan's Wheel of Time suddenly stopped moving and seemed to fade. The time power inside of it was as boundless as ever, though. Patriarch Huyan performed an incantation and pointed, causing the black wheel to fly screaming through the air toward Meng Hao. Meng Hao continued to shoot backward and retreat. He spit out a mouthful of blood and then produced a medicinal pill which he immediately consumed. He then made a grasping motion with his right hand, causing the devil's spear to appear. Although it appeared to be much more faint than before, there were still countless vicious, howling faces within its midst. Without hesitation, Meng Hao shot backward, hurling the devil's spear out. It buzzed through the air as it headed toward the black chariot wheel. Next, Meng Hao's eyes began to shine with a strange light. He flicked his right sleeve, and at the same time, sent his divine sense into the blood immortal mask. Considering that he was currently in the 7th anima, as soon as his divine sense touched the flag of 3 streamers, he was able to fully employ the true power of the first streamer of the flag. The air around him vibrated and distorted as a streamer as red, as the color of blood suddenly appeared in Meng Hao's hand. It rippled in the air as Meng Hao waved it, causing a blood-like wind to suddenly rise up. This was different from the times Meng Hao had wielded the flag of 3 streamers on previous occasions. This was the true manifestation of the first streamer, and was not illusory like before. The blood-colored tempest that the treasure gave rise to caused Patriarch Huyan's face to fill with astonishment. That flag, damn it, how could you have an immortal treasure like that? Even as Patriarch Huyan was expressing his disbelief, the flag unfurled, transforming into a red banner that stretched out in front of Meng Hao toward the Wheel of Time. Although it takes some time to describe, the devil's spear and the flag of 3 streamers instantly shot toward the black chariot wheel. There was no hesitation on Patriarch Huyan's part, as he performed a double-handed incantation in an attempt to control the wheel treasure. However, even in the middle of the incantation, the mastiff suddenly pounced toward him. It had reached a frenzied state, as if it didn't fear death at all. As it neared, the bloody light shining off of it flickered in intensity and transformed into countless threads that slashed toward Patriarch Huyan. Patriarch Huyan was cursing inwardly. His hatred for the mastiff had already sunk deep into his bones. Yet again, he realized that if it weren't for the damnable immortal beast, the battle would have gone much more smoothly. While Patriarch Huyan was being pinned down by the mastiff, Meng Hao's eyes glittered with a red light. His aura exploded up into the heavens. He was utilizing 64 times the battle prowess of a great circle nascent soul and divine sense with a range of 29,999 meters. Together, they formed into a divine ability. Demon Sealing, 8th Hex. His hair whipped about and his cultivation base rotated rapidly. Demonic chi in the area seethed as he lifted his hand up and pointed his index finger straight out ahead of him toward Patriarch Huyan. As he pointed, blood oozed out of Meng Hao's nose, ears, and eyes. Popping sounds could be heard within him, and his brain and body filled with a roaring sound. Meng Hao's eyes were awash with madness. However, beneath that madness was utter calm. He was sealing a powerful spirit-severing expert, so he would of course have to pay a heavy price. But why did that matter? A tremor ran through Patriarch Huyan's body. The demonic chi in the area was boundless and majestic, and formed into something like a sea. In the blink of an eye, it wrapped around Patriarch Huyan, transforming into a seal. His cultivation base was suppressed, and he suddenly ceased all movement. What divine ability is this? Patriarch Huyan was completely shocked. The mastiff seized this opportunity to strike out with its paw. Roaring could be heard, and blood sprayed from Patriarch Huyan's mouth. His expression was one of savageness. However, the brief pause imposed upon him damaged his connection to the Wheel of Time, almost as if his divine sense had been severed. Only a tiny connection remained. However, it was at this moment that the devil's spear bore down onto the wheel. It stabbed directly into it, causing a massive explosion to ring out. Even though the spear was greatly weakened, vast quantities of mist still poured out of it, causing the wheel to tremble violently and then move about a third of a meter to the side. It was a small movement, but it instantly weakened the final scrap of divine sense which connected the Wheel of Time and Patriarch Huyan. This caused Patriarch Huyan's face to flicker once again. It was in this moment that the flag of 3 streamers hit the wheel. A boom rose up into the air. Meng Hao shouted, and the flag completely wrapped around the wheel, then heaved it to the side. Booms could be heard. The wheel turned into a black, trembling beam of light that moved a full 30 meters off to the side. The movement caused any remaining connection with Patriarch Huyan to be completely destroyed. All of this took place in the amount of time it takes for a spark to fly up into the air. The effect of the 8th demon sealing hex was already vanishing from Patriarch Huyan. Blood sprayed from Meng Hao's mouth as he once again used the 8th demon sealing hex, ignoring any injuries he would receive in the process. Just when Patriarch Huyan recovered use of his cultivation base, it was once again sealed. At the same time, the blood mastiff, in response to Meng Hao's divine sense, roared. Bloody light shot up, and the power of its spirit-severing cultivation base rocketed out as it charged again toward Patriarch Huyan. As of now, Meng Hao was completely ignoring Patriarch Huyan. Instead, he shot directly toward the Wheel of Time. The single flag streamer teleported to join him. A fierce light gleamed in Patriarch Huyan's eyes. In this critical moment of the battle, the power of his cultivation base suddenly exploded out. He raised his head up and howled as the demonic chi seal surrounding him collapsed. He had extricated himself and restored his cultivation base. But now, the mastiff was upon him, and he was forced to fight. Temporarily, Patriarch Huyan was incapable of completely freeing himself. His fury burned like raging fires, consuming him as he howled in rage. As for Meng Hao, he was just now slamming into the Wheel of Time. He flicked his sleeve, causing the single streamer to wrap up the Wheel of Time which Patriarch Huyan had lost control of. Then, he collected up the streamer and put it into his bag of holding. He shockingly captured Patriarch Huyan's precious treasure. Earlier, when Patriarch Huyan had claimed that his surname was actually Han, it instantly made him think of Han Bei. He also thought about that patriarch of the Han clan who could control the power of time. All of the various threads of information formed together to give Meng Hao the audacious idea of stealing Patriarch Huyan's treasure. All of his actions up to this point had been aimed at snatching away the treasure. He even allowed himself to be injured in the process. The benefits of acquiring such an item were indescribable. "Meng Hao!" roared Patriarch Huyan, his eyes filling with veins of blood along with killing intent. He wanted to pursue Meng Hao, but the howling blood mastiff then attacked him once again. Pinned down, Patriarch Huyan could do nothing but be consumed by his indescribable rage. This mastiff, which seemingly didn't fear death in the least, had the power of spirit severing. Patriarch Huyan wasn't capable of killing it, nor even sealing it. He could only watch helplessly as his treasure was stolen away by a great circle nascent soul cultivator. The shame and rage that he felt were virtually driving him insane. In all the years he had practiced cultivation, he had almost never been put into such a difficult position. His rage could not grow anymore. Meng Hao's eyes flickered with killing intent. He had made a lot of preparations with the intent of facing Patriarch Huyan. As of this moment, his preparations had been used by about half. He still had more tricks up his sleeves. His trump card of fusing with the Violet Sea had not been brought into play yet. Chapter 544, The Tao of Emotion Severing. Meng Hao's expression was calm. He had no time to personally do anything about the effects of the Wheel of Time. He let the flag of 3 streamers suppress it, then turned and lifted up his hand. The tip of his finger turned bright red. It then transformed into a red-colored totem tattoo. This was the Jai clan blood clone aspect of his water-type totem. After absorbing it and gaining enlightenment regarding the blood-type totem, it hadn't disappeared. Rather, Meng Hao had completely suppressed it inside of his own body. It was now that, without hesitation, he released the blood clone. A bloody light shone out from his finger, flying out into midair to transform into the Jai clan blood clone. As soon as it appeared, its body exploded with bloody light that shot up into the sky. It turned its head to look at Meng Hao as if it planned to attack him. In that moment, Meng Hao gave a cold snort. The sound of it sent rippling tremors through the body of the blood clone, as if it weren't stable. Actually, when Meng Hao suppressed the clone within his body, he had also branded it with vast amounts of restrictive spells. An expression of struggle appeared on the blood clone's face for a moment. Then it turned, howling as it shot toward Patriarch Huyan. It seemed it planned to vent its frustration with Meng Hao onto Patriarch Huyan. The instant the blood clone appeared, Patriarch Huyan once again looked shocked. He could not help but tremble inwardly at Meng Hao's continuous succession of shocking methods. First was his astonishing 7 Anima's soul transformations, then his time sword formation and the flag of 3 streamers, and finally this blood clone. All of it left Patriarch Huyan thoroughly shaken inwardly. The blood clone shouted as it neared. Together with the blood mastiff, it had Patriarch Huyan essentially flanked on both sides. Patriarch Huyan's face fell. He raised up his right hand and pointed out in front of him. Instantly, the blood clone exploded, only to reform a moment later. "Damn it, it also has a will of undeath." Patriarch Huyan's face flickered as the blood mastiff pounced toward him from behind. He was not in a position to evade. The mastiff's razor-sharp fangs sank into his body, ripping open a wound from which blood sprayed out unimpeded. At the same time, Meng Hao made his move. As he neared, a divine ability suddenly manifested. Without a face, a single word, flames of war unify. More than 60 enormous faces appeared. They superimposed over each other, transforming into a divine ability backed by the power of 64 great circle nascent souls, a power that could rock spirit severing. The face's eyes opened, and its mouth moved. Roaring sounds pulsed out within Patriarch Huyan's mind. Streams of black smoke suddenly rose up from his body, 64 in total. They billowed up into the air as Meng Hao's divine ability closed in. One man, one clone, one dog battling spirit severing. Booms continued to explode out. Patriarch Huyan's aura expanded out to transform into an enormous vortex which slammed into Meng Hao, the mastiff, and the clone. Roaring filled the area and kicked up huge waves on the surface of the sea. The air itself seemed to be on the verge of splitting open. Patriarch Huyan was infuriated. Never since reaching the spirit-severing stage had he ever been in such a bad position. His spirit-severing area had been shattered, his wheel of time stolen, and to top it all off, his opponent was only a great circle nascent soul cultivator. Even though he had a spirit-severing immortal beast, even though he had a strange blood clone, this was all a complete humiliation to Patriarch Huyan. "My Tao," said Patriarch Huyan. He took a deep breath, causing all of his emotions to disappear. He became completely calm. "My Tao of severing emotions." When speaking of human emotions, love for one's family is the most powerful. By severing family love, one can sever the Tao of a lifetime. A freezing, emotionless cold suddenly rose up from Patriarch Huyan. This coldness was unfeeling, almost like it was a funeral for the 7 emotions and 6 pleasures. "My parents died when I was young," murmured Patriarch Huyen, "so there was no way to sever them. My feelings for my beloved are dispensable as far as I am concerned, so that severing would have been useless. Only my feelings for my sons would conform to my Tao of severing emotions. My first severing was of that Tao of feelings. It is common knowledge that I have an only son. What is not common knowledge is that I actually had 9 sons in total. I killed the first 8 with my own hands in order to create my Tao of extinguishing emotions. I placed all my hopes in my final son, Huyanqing, and did everything for him. I concentrated all my fatherly love on him. When that love reached its pinnacle, I would kill him, and the resulting pain would be intense to the extreme. Only by experiencing such pain and grief could I complete my first severing and become totally emotionless. By killing my son, you have ruined my Tao. Nothing could possibly compare to the towering hatred which I feel toward you. My Tao is a severing of emotion." Patriarch Huyan's aura suddenly exploded out. His spirit-severing domain, his first severing, was of emotion. That emotion was not romantic love, nor friendship. Instead, it was the most powerful of all emotions, the love for blood relatives. Before spirit severing, Patriarch Huyan had been an emotional and loving person. Afterwards, he chose to slaughter his own sons for the sake of his Tao. The only one that remained was Huyanqing. His choice for this spirit-severing Tao was actually very similar to that of Patriarch Hangsu of the Frigid Snow clan. However, in the end, Patriarch Hangsu chose not to continue with the severing. Patriarch Huyan, on the other hand, was more resolute. He concentrated all of his fatherly love onto his son, Huyanqing, holding none in reserve. It was like he took all of the family love that existed within his person and focused it solely on Huyanqing. As far as Huyanqing was concerned, Patriarch Huyan had indulged him in every way, tolerated anything. It had been a boundless fatherly love. Only in that way could he sever pain, sever his heart, and truly complete his first severing. By extinguishing family love, he could form his Tao of extinguishing emotions. But now Huyanqing was dead, killed by another. Because Patriarch Huyan hadn't killed him, it meant that Patriarch Huyan's first severing could not be completed perfectly unless he spent much time reversing the setback. The easiest method would be to slay the person who had killed Huyanqing to get revenge. But that wasn't enough. What he needed was a rain of blood that would allow him to express all of his fatherly love and release himself from worldly cares. "Severing emotions," he said, his voice low. Instantly, everything in the area became extremely cold. An emotionless domain erupted out from him. This was a unique divine ability of the spirit-severing stage, the domain. Patriarch Huyan's domain was one in which the only thing that could exist was an extinguishing of emotions. Any scrap of emotion or passion would be extinguished inside, dispersed. As the domain spread out, the blood clone trembled. It recovered a moment later, not having been affected very much. That was because it was innately an emotionless creature. As for the mastiff, however, it began to shake violently. The bloody light which surrounded it began to flicker. The will of undeath which filled it fought back fiercely, but was clearly not a match. It began to tremble more and more violently and emit fierce howls. The one to be affected the most, though, was Meng Hao. Meng Hao's mind filled with roaring. Blood oozed out of his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. His eyes shone with confusion. Suddenly, his mind began to fill with images. His childhood and his parents. His friendship with Fatty and the others. The blur that existed between Su Qing and Chu Yuyan. The emotional connection between apprentice and master that he felt for Pill Demon. All of these things completely filled his mind, transforming into a blade that hung there within his mind. An archaic voice suddenly filled his mind. "Sever your emotions and you can exist. Emotions are a hindrance, they burn away at your flame of life. Sever them. Sever them." The voice seemed to carry some mysterious power. It caused Meng Hao's entire body to tremble. He felt as if his soul were about to be shredded into pieces. He couldn't help but let out a scream of anguish. At the same time, all the images in his mind, all the people, began to distort. They transformed into black flames that set Meng Hao's mind on fire. He felt pain, the kind of pain that comes from watching your parents dying and being helpless to save them. It was the pain that comes from watching your beloved coldly turn away into the embrace of another. It was the pain of watching your best friend smile maliciously while plunging a knife into your back. It was a pain formed from all of those various emotions, rising to the pinnacle. The pain transformed into black flames, which burned at Meng Hao's very soul. Sever them, sever the emotions, and you can exist, refuse, and your soul will be destroyed. The voice echoed out in Meng Hao's body as he trembled. It seemed as if he were existing in an illusion, but was unable to distinguish the difference between the illusion and reality. Confusion filled his eyes. Blood oozed out of his mouth. He lost control and fell down into the violet sea. This was Patriarch Huyan's emotionless domain, which severed both emotions and pain. It severed the emotions of the enemy, smashed the soul, crushed the fleshly body. Facing Patriarch Huyan with emotions led only to death. Giving in to the demands of the domain led to becoming a puppet. Refusing to give in led to death in body and spirit. Meng Hao sank down into the violet sea. As he did, his mind's eye was filled with various images from his life. The joys, the sorrows, the partings, the reunions, pain, betrayal, they all seemed to swirl into a cycle of pain. When Meng Hao's body suddenly hit the seafloor, his eyes opened. As of this moment they were clear. However, it was a clearness filled with exhaustion. Emotions are not a hindrance, he murmured. Emotions are what make life complete. He closed his eyes. In the instant that he did, the violet sea began to roar and its surface roiled. The mastiff was trembling in midair, its eyes bright red. The blood clone was actually not impeded at all. However, as it neared Patriarch Huyan, confusion suddenly filled its eyes. Patriarch Huyan hovered there in midair, his domain spreading out, filling the entire area. It was at this moment that the violet sea began to roar, causing Patriarch Huyan's brow to furrow. As he frowned, the waters of the violet sea began to collect together. An enormous head suddenly began to emerge, then a body, then two legs. In the shocking blink of an eye, an enormous giant made of seawater rose up from within the violet sea. The giant looked like Meng Hao in every way. Its closed eyes suddenly snapped open. They emanated a bright glow as it lifted up its right hand. The gigantic hand, formed of massive quantities of water, formed into a fist and then punched out toward Patriarch Huyan. A massive boom echoed out across the waters. Patriarch Huyan's face fell and he instantly retreated. He managed to avoid the fist, but his domain was completely shattered. Emotionless? You actually transformed into something emotionless. No, this isn't you, this is the violet sea. He actually fused with the violet sea. This. Patriarch Huyan's eyes went wide and filled with disbelief. Only emotionless beings could exist within his domain. This violet sea giant was just such an emotionless creature. After all, the violet sea was fundamentally death. In death, what dies is not just the body, but also emotion.